Hello, listeners. Welcome to episode 22 of the Avocado Gamescast. I'm Merve, your friendly neighborhood gamer. Today we're going to be looking ahead to what we might expect from the year ahead in gaming, specifically E3. We're also going to be talking about our feelings on video game violence. But first, let's meet the folks who are joining me today. First up, it's scary how good he is. It's the Radio Cat.
Hello!
Next, if you glue two of her together, you get a StarCraft pro. It's DemiDeva.
Hey, I just got out of that joke.
And if you glue two of him together, you get two angry video game nerds. It's Ben.
Morning.
And finally, he's just scared of glue. It's the Kappa.
What's up, guys?
All right, so how are you guys all doing?
Okay, is there an explanation for that intro? Because I don't get the scared of glue thing.
Oh, just because Radio Cat was scary, and we glued two of you together twice.
I don't want to get glued.
There's no joke. There's no
I
joke.
get it.
Sometimes
Like
it's just...
I said, it's 4 a.m. and I've been drinking, so I might be a bit slow.
It's fine. Sometimes there's just no reason for anything that we do on this podcast. But, you know, we manage to... We have, like, 4 listeners. They enjoy our content. So, last night, I actually started playing the new Prey game that came out.
Oh,
Yeah, have you, the rest of you guys tried it?
I did the
Tried it,
demo.
I've been-
It's the non-sequel to
Yeah,
the
it's
old Prey.
Yeah, it's a sequel that isn't a sequel. So they had this game back in 2006 called Prey, and it was an FPS with some magical elements. And this is basically System Shock 3. Well, they're actually making System Shock 3. This is like a System Shock fan game, sort of, almost. It's nothing to do with the original
Portal
Prey.
shit from Prey 1?
No, not at
For
all.
the
Not as
weird
far as I know. I'm
mysticism
only...
stuff.
Prey?
Pardon me?
That was the only thing I liked about the first Prey. I thought that portal shit was rad.
I got, like, 2 hours into that game, but I was running it on a shitty laptop, so the frame rate was so bad that I couldn't play it.
Even at release, that game was really, really taxing for systems. It was
Yeah.
not well optimized.
Oh, I was playing it years after release. On, like,
Yeah,
a
okay.
really bad laptop.
Yeah, no excuses.
I had no excuse. But yeah, it was... so what I've been playing so far of it, it's interesting. I don't know what to make of it yet, because I'm only an hour in. But they've got this whole... It feels like... I mean, not having played System Shock, it feels like the love child of, I'd say, Bioshock and Dead Space, almost, what they're going for.
That's pretty much System Shock, yeah.
Yeah. So it works...
Is there like an RPG element to it, or is it just a straight corridor shooter?
It's a lot more RPG elements than, say, Bioshock.
Okay.
I'd say it's closer to... It's almost closer to Deus Ex in that regard. But...
I
Any
know my friend described it as basically the game Bioshock wanted to be.
Yeah, almost. I'd say that. And somebody who's not a huge fan of the original Bioshock, I think I'm more on board with this than I was with the first Bioshock. But again, I'm only an hour in, so it's hard to tell what's going to happen going forward. Like, basically all I've done is... Like, this isn't a spoiler. In the first hour, you get a weapon called the glue cannon, which you can use to essentially immobilize enemies or shoot instant drying glue that builds platforms. You can use it to reach higher places. And the other weapon I've got is a wrench, so I haven't really even delved into the combat or anything yet.
Oh, even the
Oh,
wrench,
yeah.
that's right out of Bioshock.
Yeah. It's very
Yeah, 'cause-
Man, that
Bioshocky.
glue cannon already sounds more interesting than anything in Bioshock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think powers-wise and weapons-wise, it feels more like a Dishonored almost, in the kind of
It's the same guys as Dishonored, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
Arcane.
Dishonored?
It's Arcane, but it's not the French studio; it's the Austin studio.
That's one of the reasons I held off on buying it, honestly, for PC, because it was so poorly optimized on PC.
Dishonored 2, yeah. Dishonored
it's
2 did not look much better than Dishonored 1, but ran way worse.
It was frustrating. I haven't used a lot of Steam returns, but that was one of my first ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just still salty we didn't get that Prey 2 with the Johnny Cash trailer.
Yeah.
right?
Wasn't that supposed to be like a space bounty hunter game?
An open world first person parkour space bounty hunter Metroid game.
There was a lot of weird like
Sounded
mysticism
amazing.
to it too. I can't like it had a little like I don't know like you were like bringing some kind of gods back to life. I can't remember. The trailer was forever ago.
Was
In
that
which
the
one, sorry?
trailer?
Sorry, what were you asking
Was
about
that
the
the
trailer?
trailer for the version that was actually a sequel? Because
Yeah. The version that was actually the sequel had a trailer out. Man, it must have been like 5 or 6 years ago, where yeah, like I was saying, like there was like kind of like a weird god angle to it, and you were like bringing gods back to life or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, you were like,
I have no idea what game you're talking about, but it wasn't the Prey 2 trailer.
oh really? All right, never mind.
Prey 2 trailer was dude was a sheriff on a plane. He gets abducted by aliens. Then it like skips to like 10 years later, and he's been living on like this alien space station for ages. Gets a bounty and has this big chase sequence to find a dude and capture him, and it looked awesome. And I want to play that game.
Yeah, I must be thinking of something totally different.
but the
I've got
god
no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
the god's thing sounded like Prey to me, honestly, like the original Prey.
Yeah, I think the thing about Prey 2 is that it had nothing to do with the original Prey. I don't like. It seems like they're making these games and calling them Prey just so they can keep the license or the rights to the name. Like, there's no
Yeah.
reason to call this particular game Prey.
But
at
they
all.
don't have like. Didn't id make Prey, and they own id, so they don't have any like chance of losing it.
I don't know exactly what. I think it must have something to do with trademark rights and like having to. I'm not sure how trademark law works in the United States, but it seems like they're making Prey just like they're calling it Prey just because they have the name, and this
Yeah.
this game should really be called something else.
Have you seen all the shit with like it installs into the same folder as Prey 1?
As Prey 1, yeah.
Both on your
No
computer,
way.
because
Yeah.
it's called Prey.
If you have Prey 1 installed on Steam, which like a lot of people did because they're like, oh, well, sequel, you know, I might as well give this game a shot. It installs it like right over the same folder.
That's hilarious.
That seems like okay. So you're talking about PC issues. The game seems to run smoothly. Like in the hour I've played, it runs very well, and I'm like recording my gameplay at the same time. So and even without a hitch, so it's well optimized. But that seems like something that somebody should have caught in testing, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So I don't know. It seems like they spent so much time optimizing that they forgot about the fact that it shared a name with a previous game. Anyway, so what the rest of you guys been playing? Radio Cat, what have you been playing?
Well, I just finished up Yooka-Laylee. I went up and I did the 100%ed it, except for the pirate treasure secret, super secret things. But I had a great time with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a sort of a polarizing game, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's what I was going to say. I know about 2 people who got into it, and one hates it and one loves it. So it's kind of...
Yeah, I think it really depends on like your feelings of those era of games, because it really is just exactly what they set out to make, which is another version of those games with problems and all.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I
seemed...
never got the complaint that like people were saying it felt too old and shit. Like it was always supposed to be like Banjo-Kazooie 3, basically. What the fuck did you expect?
Exactly.
I mean, some of the stuff from... Like, there are a lot of challenges in the game which are, like, really unfairly timed, or they rely on extreme precisions that the controls don't really allow for. And so half the time you're just, like, you'll go through something 10 times, you'll get lucky once, and finally win the challenge and get the star, or in this case, the Pagey. So it feels like they didn't play test a lot of it properly, or they made it unnecessarily difficult in some parts. But I think the bones of a good game are there. They kind of messed it up in some of the details. It's not a game that I think is like absolute garbage or anything like that. I think it's a game that, you know, maybe needed a little bit of testing, or needed some people who didn't have nostalgia goggles on making it. But
The
I'm
backers
not.
were the playtesters, pretty much, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that might be
Didn't they have
kind of
like the
part
toy
of it.
box and shit out?
Pardon me.
Didn't it have like the toy box and shit out like long before the game came out that you could play?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the toy box was really limited because I played that too, and it wasn't much. It was pretty bare bones, and I don't know. I think like there definitely needed to be more playtesting because there were a lot of like little weird quirks that they should have fixed out ahead of time. But like I think they fixed the camera issues mostly like recently, and after I had already finished the game. Just because in close quarters that camera is not fun.
Yeah,
Mo-
my issue with the camera is when you're using the flight ability. It just kind of swings around wildly anytime you're trying to change direction, which made one of the challenges like brutal to do.
Yeah, my friend that was playing it basically said a lot of what you guys were saying, that the controls weren't quite what the game thought they were, and it made it very hard to do a lot of the challenges.
Yeah.
Definitely. I would say an extreme example of that is the cart sequences where you're in a mine cart and you have to brake or speed up accordingly and jump and collect these gems. And it's just the controls were my controller's a little broken and it made it incredibly hard, but I've heard that it's also touchy regardless if your
I have a
controller's
brand new controller
broken.
and it's not
Then
very
there's no
good.
excuse. Yeah.
I would say it controls decently well outside of those sequences, but those cart sequences are some of the worst game design I've seen in years.
Yeah, like
Wow.
that was the sequences where I'm like, I hope I get it this time because it's mostly chance. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna
Some of
do.
them took me like 50 tries to do. I'm not even kidding.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Man,
but
I haven't played it yet, but like, are you talking like card sequences like fucking Donkey Kong?
yeah, but worse.
Yeah,
Wow.
Wait. But they made the Donkey Kong ones, and the Donkey Kong ones are awesome.
right.
Yeah, these are so bad. I
They
mean,
blew it.
yeah, it's a very small part of the game, and you can just not do them, right? You don't need to do them to beat the game,
Yeah.
but they are a black mark on what I think is otherwise a pretty good game.
Another weird choice was for the cart sequences. They have a whole boss based around those.
Yeah,
So that was like to me a weird choice by them. If they knew that the controls were bad, like they could have figured that out with playtesting and avoided it. But
See, that's what I think. What I was kind of getting at is that if the playtesting are your number one fans that kickstart back your game and everything else, I think you're right. They're going to look at it with a lot of rose-colored glasses, no matter what.
Yeah, you're not going to get a very objective
Exactly.
opinion on it. Wait, any of the guys from this, like, none of one worked on the Wii Donkey Kongs, did they? That was all,
Rare.
Those are all-
Metroid Prime, did they?
was it called Retro Studios or no?
Yeah, the Metroid Prime guys? That was all, like,
Let me look that up because we have
that's a
computers.
good question.
It was Retro Studios, yeah.
yeah, Metroid Prime dudes, yeah, so they didn't have anything to do, like, it was no cross-pollination from there, was it?
No, this is all the old Rare guys, and
Just
and
ex-Rare guys.
there's the same people who made Perfect Dark.
Man, you know what I've realized, though, with Rare? Their games kind of sucked. Like, playing through Rare Replay, and none of those games are actually very good. And
Hey,
were Rare
hey.
ever actually
Perfect Dark.
good?
I mean, frame rate issues aside, Perfect Dark is amazing.
You know what I think about Rare? Rare is kind of like early Disney movies. Do you know what I mean? Like in your head when you watched them when you were a kid, they were so awesome, but now when you go back, you're like, ugh.
Yeah,
It's like,
I can see that.
yeah,
I
like
had N64, and I put, like, I think my game time on Perfect Dark was, like, at the 9999, like, as high as it would go. But I went back and played Perfect Dark on the Rev Replay, and it's not great. Like, I have played so many better shooters than that, like, on modern, like, it's...
Yeah, it doesn't. I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, it was built on the GoldenEye model, right? And that kind of control scheme and the way those kinds of shooters work has, like, we don't make those kinds of games anymore.
Well, even I mean, I remember reading they had like a big introspective on GoldenEye, and I don't even think the GoldenEye designers understood how that control scheme would work. If you guys really played a lot of GoldenEye, remember how to play it. You remember you kind of just strafed the whole time you played with those weird camera buttons.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
you were good at GoldenEye, you never walked straight. You always kind of walked at this weird diagonal. And they were talking about like, yeah, we didn't even realize people would do that. Like when they would play the game, like they're like they slowly like in testing, like, wait a minute, we figured out we can move faster just kind of walking at this weird diagonal. And so like it was kind of too late because multiplayer for GoldenEye was like like literally like a last minute thing. Like they were patching it as
Isn't that strafe thing also in Quake?
Yeah, but I mean, remember the N64 controller was that weird
Like the trident
design.
No, I
controller.
totally remember what you're talking about, but it's super weird that both Quake and GoldenEye both had strafing ended up being faster than everyone used.
Yeah, that was like their main mechanic was to walk like kind of at a diagonal. So, but yeah, I mean the GoldenEye story is really fascinating. It was kind of just like one of those things that just came together at their last minute, and it was basically at the request of like I want to say like I can't remember. It was like the certification guy for the N64 was like, hey, you guys should try to put in some multiplayer, and like they just kind of tinkered with it, and like they're like, yeah, this multiplayer is awesome, but literally we're shipping like next month, so we're gonna try to cobble something together. Yeah, it's a crazy story if you guys can look it up.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
It was
it's
really last minute, and that's why they beefed it up a lot for when they make Perfect Dark, because they're like, hey, people actually enjoyed it in GoldenEye, and they made it, that much more feature filled for Perfect Dark.
Yeah,
Man,
so
the
I
thing
mean,
that really shocked me going back to like Perfect Dark and that shit is like you go back to Halo 1 today, and that game still plays really well. Like,
yeah.
you go on like the Master Chief Collection or whatever. That it's still a really fucking good game. The level designs are great, and the fucking library shit aside, but I couldn't beat the first level in Perfect Dark.
Are you talking about the
I
part where you have to get like your little scanner drone out and send it down into the?
I had
Which
no idea what
Yeah,
the fuck I was doing.
yeah.
Like I said, I played the shit out of that game. But like playing it now, it's like what the fuck is this?
Yeah, my my son, he's been trying to like get into games, and one of the things I thought, well, Perfect Dark is pretty cartoony, get that over to him, let him give it a shot. And that very first stage, I think it's the one you're talking about. It was just unbelievably complex, and I was trying to like basically beat it, and I couldn't remember like where entire parts were. I had to send that drone down into the vent, and there's like no indicators at all about what you're supposed to be doing. Like you just have to basically kind of get lucky on lots of these weird parts of that game.
It's basically a game designed around spend 20 hours on this level to figure out what the fuck you're supposed to do, or
Yeah,
buy the
exactly.
walkthrough.
Oh my
Exactly.
god! It took me. I played it growing up co-op with a friend who had an N64, and it took us, I think, 3 weeks of fiddling around in the first Area 51 level to figure out how to do one of the objectives.
Yeah,
It's the part where you have to go down sort of at the side to blow up like the radar array or whatever. Yeah, it took us forever to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, and if you listen to a lot of like game designers and stuff, when they talk about what makes a good first-person shooter, stage, it's a lot about where the eye goes, where it takes you, and there's subtle hints in lighting and things like that. Perfect Dark has like none of that. It's like, nope, it all looks exactly the same. Good luck finding where you're supposed to go.
Right.
It's one of those things people like lament that first-person shooters became like corridor shooters and don't have big open maps and everything. But going back and playing the ones that do, I would kind of prefer a corridor shooter.
Yeah.
You mentioned the first Halo, and even like that kind of opens up weirdly, once you kind of get to that first ship. But it's still an easy way to get around. I feel like I never really feel lost in Halo, even though it's a gigantic open area.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean.
I mean, it is. Halo is really sort of the first modern shooter, right? Nobody's
Right.
making GoldenEye and Perfect Dark like shooters anymore. I mean, if you're making a shooter nowadays, you're either modeling it off Half-Life or Halo, basically.
Yeah, and I actually saw that Halo just got inaugurated into the Video Game Hall of Fame, which I'd have figured it would have been in by now, So that was surprising to me, but And that's basically what you're saying is like the modern shooter bases a lot off of Halo.
Yeah, it's like the stuff like the 2-weapon limit and, you know, constantly switching weapons, the regenerating health, that's all very Halo. And people who tend to make sort of more old school shooters like your Wolfensteins and all that are basically like, or at least the modern Wolfensteins are more Half-Life than the original Wolfenstein, really.
Yeah. I miss my weapon wheels.
You're the one person who does.
Yeah, I miss like the number keys are my weapon selectors, and I like shooters like that where I fill up, you know, from 1 through 0. Each of those map into a different weapon. Or in the case of a shooter like, say, Command & Conquer Renegades, some of those numbers map to like 5 or 6 weapons. There are like 20 friggin' weapons in that game. So, DemiDeva, what have you been playing?
Oh, nothing new. I'm afraid I've been confronted with how obsolete my rig has gotten, because I play on an obsolete operating system. So, but I've been still
by obsolete,
trying.
are we talking like Windows 7 or Windows 95?
We're talking in the middle, right down the middle, Windows 6P.
Oh, wow.
XP. And so the games I've been playing, like out of a bit, have been starting to get unplayable. So, like I've been still been playing the trading card game Infinity Wars. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that one.
Infinity Wars? Yeah, I didn't. So it's based off Marvel properties, correct?
No, not at all. Only in Google searches will it seem to be.
Okay, this is the case of a game that just shares its name with something more famous.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe Advance Wars.
No, so I'm looking at this right now. Infinity Wars animated trading card game on Steam.
Huh.
When they say animated, it's not very extensive animation, but it's a nice concept. I guess Infinity Wars from Marvel wasn't really on the radar when the game came out, because it's getting an old game, even if.
Yeah, it came out back in 2014, according to Steam.
And they keep getting in and out of beta. I don't know if that's an unusual thing for
To
games.
go back into beta? I don't think that's very usual.
There was a whole point where they were relaunching it, so they were back in beta essentially, and so it's kind of a troubled game with a small community. So.
Sometimes those are really fun though to get into. I mean, I know I had a really good time with Marvel Heroes, which was smaller game when it was launched. It was a free to play, kind of weird. Nobody really knew what to make of it. Diablo clone. I had a lot of fun with that game.
I know I fucking played the shit out of Skullgirls. It had a community of like 12 people.
Yeah, I tried Skullgirls. I could not get into it.
Yeah,
I
love that game.
It's one of those fighting games where you have to like know the frames, or like what did they call them, like the frame skips, things like that.
Frame data.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, that's way too much for me.
I know. I am the kind of person that looks up frame data on fighting games. So
yeah. Speaking of getting into small communities, I was huge into this mod for Command & Conquer Renegade that back in the day was called, I think, Ren Alert for Renegade Alert. Like, it was a Red Alert mod for Command & Conquer Renegade, which is otherwise set in the Tiberian Sun universe. And so I played that, like, I got to know the multiplayer regulars in that game, and it was just like 20 of us who would all play the same maps over and over and over again. Now I think that mod is called Red Alert: A Path Beyond, and it's no longer built on the same engine as Renegade. I think it's Unreal or CryEngine or something now.
Huh.
But yeah.
Kind of a sadder modern one, For Honor, for such a popular game. I mean, it was huge at release. I've still kind of would dive in and play a match or two, and it's a fighting game. You know, don't let everything else about it fool you. But I'm starting to recognize people's names and shields and stuff like that. So that's kind of
wow.
weird. Yeah, that's not a good sign for that game.
Yeah, it doesn't have the big staying power that I thought it would have because it had a lot of pre-release hype.
Yeah, and it's a very good game. Don't get me wrong. I feel like some stuff has been kind of unfair to it in a way. But yeah, it's dying out.
If I can take off and go from there,
Sure.
my game I was going to talk about this week is I've been getting way back into For Honor.
Yeah,
I
there you go.
fucking love that game.
Yeah, it's not a bad game. It really isn't. I don't want you to, I don't want you to think I'm saying it's a bad game. But yeah,
I think Dominion mode sucks, though. I have to say
domination. Yeah,
the little area. That's shit. I just play Duels all day because, like you said, you play Duels and it's a fighting game, and I fucking love fighting games. And it's
So what
amazing.
what is Duels exactly?
Duels, I think.
Duels, sorry.
Duels, just one-on-one.
I actually mostly play against AI, so I've probably got a way different experience than you do. If you play a lot of multiplayer versus,
I basically only play online.
Yeah.
One thing about it having a small community, though, that game's community, even now, even in Australia, even on Xbox One, which I think is the lowest selling one, is still higher and more active than basically any fighting game I've ever been into.
Yeah, fighting game wise, I mean, you like I said, you see the same people, but I mean, it takes 10 seconds to get a match. I mean, the people who are playing it. So
like,
I guess
Street Fighter 5 takes me longer to get a match than it does in For Honor.
Who do you main?
Conqueror.
Oh, really? Valkyrie. So you probably
just like my offhand main. Like, I've got my Valkyrie is about like level 7 or 8, but my Conqueror is at like Reputation 2, level 17 or something.
When that game eventually, and it will, when that game gets like its half price off sale, I really recommend you guys give it a shot. I don't know if I've ever played a game like it. It kind of feels like the future of fighting games, if I'm being honest.
I don't think there is a game like it. To be honest, like the closest I could compare it to is it's like Tekken and Dark Souls PvP had a weird, fucked up baby.
Yeah.
Now
So-
you're speaking my language.
My understanding is that you control like your limbs sort of separately. Like you control.
Basically, what it is so it's a third-person character, like camera behind you and everything. You hold the left trigger, you lock on to your opponent. The right trigger is like your attacks, like kind of like Dark Souls. You have light attack and heavy attack on bumper and trigger. But the thing is, with the right stick, since you're locked on and the camera's locked on with the left stick, your right stick controls the direction you're blocking, so you can either block up, left, or right, which will also be the direction you attack from. So if they're attacking from the left, you block to the left to deflect the attack, kind of thing.
Okay.
It's a lot more fluid on PC because what you do is think about, so when you encounter somebody, you lock on them, left control locks on them, right? And then your mouse is kind of like your stance. So you can mouse up, left, or right, or there's a hidden stance, but that's too complicated. So up, left, or right. So if somebody goes to high attack you, if you push your mouse up, you block it. If you push your mouse up at exactly the right time, you parry it, and then you can counter. And, there's guards and blocks and combos and stuff like that off of that. But it's very, like, the fights feel very tense. I don't know how to describe it because it's like if you miss one block, you're down half your health. It's
Like,
very unforgiving.
Yeah, you can kill someone in like 4 or 5 hits. So like the fights end up, and also because of how the game's made, there's not that what's the word I'm looking for? Like you have to practice your combos and get good at the actual inputs and mechanics and everything.
Yeah, the
There's
combos
not
all flow into each other basically.
You can't button mash basically.
Well, no, it's not that. It's there's a word for it I'm looking for, but like, say if I'm playing Street Fighter, right?
Yeah.
And I pick my main, and so like I'll pick Rashid, and I'll go into practice mode and spend an hour practice like linking his like low medium kick into his like medium punch into his like spinning tornado thing, and you just practice that and practice that and practice that until you can do it on reaction in a match. In For Honor, there's none of that. It's because the combos are all really easy to do. There's not much technical limitation on you, so the entire game then becomes the mind game of trying to figure out what they're about to do and react to that.
and like react or like be like proactive about it, I guess. But yeah, what he's saying is a good way. Like the combos really flow into each other. Like it feels natural to do like like a shield bash that ends up in like a high punch, or like the equivalent of a high punch, which is a light high attack. So I mean, the combos themselves feel really, really good to pull off and perform. It doesn't feel like Street Fighter, where like, oh, I didn't chain this or I didn't hit this, at the exact right frame, so now my whole combo's done. The combo times are very forgiving, but yeah, you got to give it a shot. It's one of those things like I really recommend people give a shot. So
Yeah, it seems intriguing.
And there's a thing about it that, like, I think, like, you said it's like the future of fighting games, which I can totally see until that League of Legends fighting games comes out, and that's going to destroy everything. Because that is fucking
Just because of the
happening.
name.
No, like, that game is happening. I would put money down on it. They bought a fighting game developer. Yeah, one thing I reckon is that combat system, you take that combat system out of For Honor, put it in any fucking open world, like, fantasy RPG, and that game is better. Like, you put that fighting system in The Witcher, and The Witcher is way more fun.
Yeah,
you put that in Skyrim, Skyrim is way more fun.
It feels
like,
paper, rock, scissors at first until you really get it. Like, and then once it clicks, like, because like I said, I play the high difficulty bots, and they are not forgiving, honestly. Like, it sounds like the bots in that game will one combo you down way faster. They have no mercy. But once you start to figure out how moves chain into each other and how combos kind of work, it's a really fun back and forth, I guess, that I really enjoy as far as fighting games go.
I was gonna say, I feel like third-person melee combat. I mean, there's sort of the Arkham Knight or Sleeping Dogs kind of model, which works fine, but I think there's room for something more visceral, and that would work really well, as Ben suggested, in Skyrim or Witcher. And
but, like, this is
it would make those games.
What I reckon
It would make me want to actually play those games.
Yeah, like, this is what I reckon the next level of third-person melee combat should be. I want to see everything copy this. But one thing I did want to talk about is what I'm getting really fucking excited about is they just announced all the Season 2 shit for Honor. Yep. So there's 2 new classes. There's a fucking Roman Centurion and a ninja.
Yeah.
Like, the ninja can fucking teleport in smoke bombs. The Roman Centurion just... like, all his fatalities and animations and everything makes him look like the most arrogant, smug douchebag, and I can't fucking wait to play him.
They showed his execution, and, like, he kind of does, like, the thumbs up, thumbs down over the corpse of his enemy.
Second execution?
Yeah. The one where, like, he fights the Peacekeeper, like, and, like, basically, like, drags her face all around. That one.
There's the one, he stabs a sword into their chest, and then just, like, walks off and, like, kind of pumps up the crowd, like, puts his arms out, like, yeah! While this person's just sitting there, like, clawing at the sword in them, then just walks back, takes the sword out, and chops their head off. It's like, oh my god, he looks like a dickhead. I love him. And it's going to be... Which is one thing I also wanted to get into, is that game has probably the most fair version of, like, use in-game currency to buy new stuff, and you can buy
100%. 100%.
Like, I have not paid a cent for new in-game currency, but I can afford everything I want without, like, it will take me a couple of days of doing the, like, daily missions and everything, but I've never had a problem affording anything. I've got the most expensive, like, emotes and executions on my character and everything, and it's just, yeah.
There's 2 economies.
It's strange
there's like
that Ubisoft actually got it right this time, after fucking it up with all their other games.
There are some downsides. I would say the matchmaking is very hit and miss, honestly, like, in not a good way.
I meant, like, on the microtransaction front.
Oh, yeah, the microtransactions are probably the best part of the game, weirdly. Because, like Ben's saying, I mean, you can get everything you want, basically just playing the game. You can unlock all the characters. You can unlock, all the crazy armor and emotes. And
they're not doing any, like, random loot box shit, right?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I think that's here to stay.
Okay, but it's not like you can only get stuff through random loot boxes.
Yeah, so what they do is there's 3 different tiers of loot boxes. So, like, think like a mid tier, a low tier, and a high tier. So if you pick up the mid tier, it guarantees you a like the equivalent of like a green, like a higher level but not great gear. But they guarantee you at the highest level 2 epic loot. So if you're just willing to save, you can have everything you want relatively quickly.
Okay.
But if you're just
But
kind of
there
like,
is also like every single match you play, at the end of it, you get a piece of gear as well. So
right,
like you can not buy a single loot box and still can get completely kitted out. And how the gear works that you earn at the end of the match is, say you're a level 1 character, you're only going to get gear that is equivalent for a level 1 character. But I'm like the equivalent of like level 57 or so I get much higher level gear. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. I can see that. I mean, it's all like, this is all somewhat alien to me because the last time I was big into multiplayer was before there was character progression and all that. And that's like a development in the past 10 years that it's kind of passed me by. So Kappa, what have you been playing?
Well,
Other than For Honor, I guess.
For Honor is like something I dip into now and then. It's not like a constant. Like if I feel the need to fight, that's when I play For Honor. I've gotten back into Destiny, crazily enough.
Wow.
They're kind of so. Destiny 2 obviously was announced. Honestly, got me really pumped. And then so I decided, hey, let's go see what's up with Destiny. What's kind of the new thing right now? And it's their year of what do they call it? Age of Triumphs. I'm sorry. Thing. So like it's kind of like it's like they go back around and you do all the missions, but they tweak them all and they add like different multipliers and effects and things like that to them. So it feels very cool. It feels like, you know, like all the old stuff that you used to do all the time is now fresh. They added 2 different events in the game since vanilla. One is the Taken, which is kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, kind of like a zombie virus type thing. The other is Siva, which is like a biomechanical type dealio. But, you know, the shooting in Destiny is still amazing. Destiny is still good for what it is. I really like it. I'm really pumped for 2. The hard part is going to be deciding PC or
Console.
PlayStation. Yeah, I think I got to go PC. I really do. But
yeah, it's a shooter. You really gotta do PC.
Yeah, and Destiny is
Is
very.
it going to be crossplay?
No, they were talking about whether it was, but I don't think they can make it happen. Microsoft has tried to push that on a couple games, but where it breaks down is, do you want to be an Xbox person playing against computer people who are a million times better at aiming just because of keyboard and mouse?
Yeah.
Or because what Destiny does, Radio Cat, you played it, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It has a very like forgiving auto aim system. Like you can more or less aim at someone's chest and get a headshot, if that makes sense.
That does not make sense, but
it's
I'll roll with
very lax.
Yeah, and so I mean, like, there's actually like, you know, Destiny has like little RPG-ish types things in it, and one of the things is like basically like auto aim, like I can't remember what they call it, like target acquisition or something. It's basically auto aim. So I mean, it's got that Call of Duty thing where you snap to aim it. It's forgiving, but I'm sure that's going to be gone for PC. But I don't know what that looks like, in terms of how Destiny plays, because the way Destiny is now, I mean, it's very automatic. It's very it's a very free flowing shooter. It's Halo, everything else. So I really enjoy it. But 2 is going to be exciting. I feel like I don't know how much you guys know about the development of Destiny, but Bungie, this was like their labor of love. It was going to be kind of like some kind of online version of Halo type thing.
I heard
whatever.
the fucking game they announced at E3 is not the game that came out.
No, it's really not. And basically that was part of the deal by Activision buying them out, was like, look, you got to get this thing out the door. They basically scrapped the entire story like 2 months before release, had to shit out this game that has almost no story. The story got added in through DLC. So there's a lot of faults with Destiny.
But as did Nolan North.
Yeah, they patched out Peter Dinklage, who was like a huge voice actor in the game. But Destiny came together. It really did, to be a really solid shooter if you enjoyed just like Halo style shooting. But now I think they're going to go back and they're actually going to build in the story into the game. They've got plenty of time to make the game they've been working on it obviously since 1 came out. But one of the big problems with Destiny 1 was when Activision said, yeah, you can make this game. It was right between console generations. So they said, well, you got to make it for PS3 and 360 as well. And at the same time, they were making it for Xbox One and PS4. And it resulted in huge problems. Like the engine they created is like a very customized engine. They would say, like, if you wanted to, like, let's say change like a stage, like add something into a stage, you had to start loading the map the day before. Like, yeah. So like they would
they
load
did not
the map.
have a good workflow.
Yeah, exactly. So like people were like saying like the development time was insane for this game because of this engine having to be able to be backwards compatible. It was so bad that actually like midstream of Destiny 1's life cycle, they were like, look, we're not gonna make the DLCs for Xbox 360 and PS3. Like they just basically said we're not making them. So all the new content I think from Taken King on, which was the big expansion, was only for the current gen and not last gen. So Destiny is a weird thing. I mean, I feel like it had so much bad press, and just like you said, like, oh, I heard, it was a nightmare when it launched. But I talked about Division not too long ago, and I do like the trend right now in gaming where, like, if they really love the product, they really care for it, they fix it, rather than just dump it out. Which would be nice if you got the full product at release, but doesn't always happen.
At least
Diablo 3 did
at least
that
it can
too.
eventually become good, right?
Yeah, what RadioCat's saying too is Diablo 3 might be one of the most famous examples. Diablo 3 at launch was garbage. That Real Money auction house was horrible.
Oh,
Paradox
yeah.
37 was a thing.
The world champion of games released too soon is Master of Orion 3.
Oh, yeah, Mu 2. Yeah, that's like a famous example. But yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea that games come out unfinished, but I do like when they say, hey, you know what, this isn't what we really envisioned. We're going to go back and fix this shit and make it good. And I feel like they did that in Division. They did it in Destiny as well. So I'm pumped for 2. I've also been playing a little bit of Dawn of War 3. I know, Merve, you were talking about optimization issues, and holy shit, man. I will never SLI again, but this game is giving me fits. 99% of the time, it looks gorgeous. Very, very good looking. I think it's an upscaled Company of Heroes 2 engine. I can't be 100%. So it looks good, and it plays really good, plays really fast. I don't have weird things, but there's certain options in the menu that just drop my frame rate to nothing. Physics being the number one of them, which SLI is supposed to be good at. So I don't know. So that one's been kind of driving me a little bit crazy.
Do they have a storyline for the orcs yet?
Yeah, you rotate through missions. You play Marines, Orcs, Eldar. So it rotates through, and all 3 of them are basically rushing to a relic to find Akinar. And so you kind of see it from all 3 angles. They have this mechanic called elites. I'm not totally sold on it. Have you guys played Company Heroes 2 at all, or like familiar with that style of upgrade in that game?
I've never even heard of Company's Heroes until you just mentioned it.
So what it is like
Whoa. Yeah, that's a pretty famous one though. Sorry, go ahead.
So like in the missions you can still upgrade your infantry and get them better guns and stuff, but there's like a meta game with different commanders that apply different abilities to different types of soldiers, and then you upgrade those soldiers. So like, for example, for the Space Marines, there's heavy bolters, right? They have to set up, but when they're set up, they do a ton of damage against infantry. They just basically are like your hold the line type defenders. If you deploy a certain elite hero, I think it's the Assault Terminators, they don't have to set up anymore. And then you can have an army doctrine on top of that. So not only do they not have to set up anymore, but now they shoot laser cannons instead of heavy bolters. So like you can tweak your army in really subtle ways, but not on the fly, which is kind of frustrating because I grew up with like the Red Alert style where it's like, well, if I want to make my grenade guys throw fireballs, I can, But in this one, you have to set it up pre-match. So if you're doing like a multiplayer or a skirmish match, and you're already locked into what commander you're using with what doctrine, and the guy just counters it, like, okay, cool, I went las cannons, but this guy's massing swords. I'm done. Like the multiplayer feels like it's over before it even really starts. Does that make sense?
It's kind of like the commanders in like Advanced Wars and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can be counterpicked in a match with a real-time strategy game, which to me is annoying because like it's not like Overwatch where it's like, oh shit, I'm not going to play Genji because this guy's, playing Mei or whatever. You now have to play a 30-minute match where you're at a huge disadvantage. Just because of...
I can see, I'm used to being counterpicked in fighting games, but that's over in like a minute.
Yeah, 5 minutes. You're like, oh shit, okay, well, yeah, there we go. But no, think about a 30-minute match now because the multiplayer is really weird. If you played Dawn of War 2, it was a pretty straightforward RTS capture point type system. So now there's capture points that give you resources, but then each base. So like if you're playing 2v2, you share a base. If you're playing 1v1, you have your own base, but you have a shield generator, turrets, and then a power core, and you have to take them down in that order. So it kind of pushes skirmishes and really small chokeholds on the map, but it feels less micro, like Dawn of War 2 was, where you have really small units engaging and using their abilities. It kind of just feels like you kind of just smash all your units into these little choke points because that's how the maps are designed, and just hope that your counter pick or whatever sets in versus the other person. So the multiplayer to me is a little bit of a mess. I'm sure they'll sort a lot of that stuff out, but the campaign's really fun. It's very Warhammery, ridiculous, over the top violence, and which we'll get into. But I'm enjoying it enough as it is. But the optimization things and the multiplayer right now is kind of feeling a little dry.
Yeah, I mean that's the sort of stuff that can get fixed in patches, but whether they have the resources to patch the sort of stuff in, that remains to be seen.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we've talked about what we've been playing. Let's talk about stuff that we might be playing in the future. So, as I'm sure you all know, E3 is happening next month in Los Angeles, as it does every year.
Wait, what?
Oh, shit, is that next month?
Pardon me?
Is that next month? I have to organize my holidays at work.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, the week of June 12th, I want to say.
Yeah, it's mid-June, I know. They're doing that. They're doing the PC days again too this year.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah.
Last year they did it overlapping with some of the major press conferences because it just didn't schedule it properly.
I just heard that they're doing it. I haven't seen the dates, but my gut is saying they're not going to do that again because that really got nobody talked about the PC stuff. It was like, yeah, there's new graphics cards. Here you go.
To be fair, that PC conference last year was fucking boring.
Yeah.
It's so much better than the first time they did
announcement,
that.
and it's like that fucking train simulator game. Like, oh yay, train simulator.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot. Well, just to get into E3 overall, I kind of feel like E3 as the hey, we're going to announce big crazy things is kind of dying out. I know we've said that probably a couple E3s in a row now, but companies, I think right now they want to do their day. They want to do the Microsoft day or the Nintendo day or the Sony day where they announce all the stuff they've got coming out and their new
Nintendo
consoles.
does like its directs now. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what I was going to say. I think Nintendo is really, they've just kind of stopped doing that because they just do their directs instead of even doing a live
They're just
one.
like, fuck it, we're out.
Well, you guys like that Switch thing. I think I was the only person who was like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, yeah, I bought a Switch day one.
I am
So.
with you on that Switch thing. That was fucking weird. And
Oh, that was a
dude
bad presentation.
Okay.
click thing one
Yeah.
more time, I was about to shoot somebody.
Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
I hated it.
And they had milking the cow for 20 minutes. Or I don't know. I mean, like, Switch
And
to
the
me.
first game they showed was like the live action cowboys playing that 1-2 switch, and I'm just like, what the fuck are we
And they went into that. They went to that boxing game, and I was like, okay, cool. That's like their Wii Sports pack-in. And they were like, whatever that game is called now, $60.
Arms?
Yeah.
Arms.
At launch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
it's kinda
apparently it
random.
is like a
I'm kinda
fully
that.
featured game, but they weren't selling it like that.
No.
So- Yeah, I don't know what the hell they were doing. Well, in any case, so E3 is about a month away. We don't really know what to expect. I
There's one
mean,
thing
it seems
to
like
expect, and that's everything's going to be leaked the week before.
yeah, we'll know what to expect if we'd know what to expect if we were recording this like 3 weeks from now. But right now, it seems like none of the major platform holders probably have any new hardware to announce, right?
Well,
Yeah,
what about Scorpio? Like, I don't know what
Uh,
the deal with that is right now.
Yeah, they
like,
they
maybe we'll
just
get
released
Scorpio.
the specs in a weird way. They had
Like
a
they
game.
showed it to Digital Foundry, and
Yeah.
then Digital Foundry told everyone.
Yeah, Digital Foundry kind of came out and said, "Here's why we can make this game really awesome on the Scorpio," and they kind of from that were able to derive some of the specs, and Digital Foundry also said some of the specs, and Scorpio is the hot shit. I mean, it's not like PS Pro; it's a legit like upgrade over the Xbox One. So everything about Scorpio sounds right. Especially they're doing a lot. They're opening up some like memory bandwidth thing I didn't really understand, but Digital Foundry explained that it's going to basically allow you to push a lot more frames and make it look a lot better, relatively easily compared to like kind of what the PS4 is doing.
And they also mentioned that like apparently it's super easy to get shit running on it. I think they said the Forza dudes took like a day to get the new Forza running at 4K natively, and it was using like 35% of the processing power.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing though. Like, that's all well and good. I'm sure it runs games beautifully. What's really going to matter to the end user though is the price tag, and I think that's what we're going to hear at E3. I mean, I think this is going to be a premium machine. There's no doubt about that. Whether that means
easily see it being $1,000 Australian. But
Oh yeah,
that
sorry.
probably means
Yeah.
nothing to you guys.
I'd probably guess around $4.99 US, $5.99 maybe. Because what?
How much is the Switch for you guys? Because
Switch is it's 300
300?
American.
Yeah, I think
American,
300.
right?
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's like 500 for me, so I needed a point of reference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be double the price of the Switch, is my guess.
I think Xbox One and PS4 Slims right now are all 300. I think the PS4 Pro, what is that, like 450 or something?
It's 400 flat.
400 flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's why I can see the Scorpio being priced around 400 or 500, which it wouldn't be crazy. I think if you're looking to be like on that premium bleeding edge of consoles, but I don't know how many people.
Whether they can afford to sell at that much of a loss.
Yeah, and I mean I don't know because there's not the peripheral pack-ins like there was with the Xbox One at release where they had the Kinect and stuff, and that jacked up the price, and then they removed the Kinect. So I don't know. The price point to me, I think the people who are going to get the Xbox One Pro are probably going to get it no matter what. They're those dieharders, they want the hottest, newest, whatever. Like, do you guys know anybody who bought a PS4 Pro?
Me.
No.
You did?
I did because I didn't have a PS4.
Okay, that
and
makes
I
sense.
had been like looking into it, and then I figured this way I'm like future proof. So whenever I get a new 4K TV, I've got the system that can go with it.
Yeah, I just don't. I guess what it's just is I don't know anybody who went from a PS4 to a PS4 Pro. Like the
no.
difference.
Oh, I
is
certainly
so
didn't
minor.
because I have one of the special edition PS4s. It's like the teal one with the Uncharted stuff on it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to trade that in.
No, and I think
One
most
thing
people. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I think is the biggest thing that they need to show for the Scorpio is what can it do for people that don't have a 4K TV? Because
Yeah.
how many people do you know that even have a 4K display?
I have a 4K.
Yeah, it makes
But
sense.
no,
makes sense for you, but like most people don't have one.
even my 4K, I just have my Xbox One hooked up to it right now, and it's more for just like 4K gaming to me is not as big a thing. It all looks good. I mean, you can't. To me, I don't know. I play my PC games in 4K, and I can tell the difference. But I'm also sitting a foot and a half away from the screen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're much closer to the
Right.
fucking thing, so you can see the pixels.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if 4K is going to be 100% worth it for most people, even on a 4K TV. I mean, it might be, but I guess my main thing would be, as of right now, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I don't know the average person who's going to want something like that.
Yeah, I don't really know what they're going for here, but again, like we'll find out the price tag probably at E3 because it's launching this fall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah, so I guess that's what we're to expect hardware-wise from Xbox. Nintendo,
I
they
want to know
just
what the fuck the
released a console.
Microsoft are gonna announce, like software-wise though, because there is the fucking pirate game that they've shown every year for the past 3
Oh.
years.
Sea of
and it still
Thieves?
doesn't have
Yeah.
That looks worse every time I see it.
I
I'm really
saw.
excited for that game, but I have no idea when the fuck it's going to come out. They have Crackdown 3, which has been
Yeah.
a fucking disappeared for like 3 years after it got announced, and I'm guessing is going to get cancelled. Like the other 2 games they announced that year, Scalebound and Phantom Dust.
Yeah.
And what else do they have?
Yeah, Scalebound I kind of get.
Years.
I wasn't optimistic about Scalebound as people were. It didn't look good to me. I mean, there was just something missing to it. It felt very plasticky. I don't know. Platinum games to me, I mean, they do cool stuff with the combat and things, but the games just kind of somehow feel weirdly, I don't know, empty, I guess, whenever I see at least videos of them. The gameplay themselves is different, but I don't know. It feels like Platinum kind of stretched themselves a little thin.
Platinum have never got to make a big budget game is a thing. Like, I think Nier was their first proper, like, we have a budget to make a game. They've been operating on the fucking cheap for a while.
Yeah.
But the thing that, more than Platinum, the thing that excited me about Scalebound is Hideaki Kamiya has never made a game that isn't my favorite game in the world. Like, he made, like, Devil May Cry 1, which is amazing. He made Resident Evil 2, which is amazing. He made Beautiful Joe, which is amazing. He made Bayonetta 1, fucking amazing. Everything he makes, amazing. And he was making a new game, and now he's not. Which does kind of lead into one other thing I am kind of expecting to see. Maybe not at this E3, but maybe next year at E3? But I think I mentioned it on here before. I reckon Scalebound's going to get turned into Drakengard 4.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because, like, it just makes sense. Like, especially I was playing Drakengard 3 recently, and there are a lot of similarities playing that and then what Scalebound was going to be. But then there was also that shit, like, Yoko Taro was doing an interview and then took off his mask and it was actually Hideaki Kamiya. And, like, Hideaki Kamiya has been posting photos of him and Yoko Taro being going out drinking and getting shit-faced at night and everything. So, like,
It's a very Yoko Taro thing to do.
And Hideaki Kamiya, let's be honest. But, like, there's something going on there, and I reckon that's going to happen, and I believe, and no one can convince me otherwise.
I didn't know Australian said reckon. It's very southern of you.
We say anything that makes words shorter.
No, I mean, I agree. That something's going to come from that game. I don't know. You know, it always gets complicated with who owns what in terms of...
They confirmed that Platinum pretty much own all the Scalebound shit.
Yeah, that's good news then.
They could probably reuse, well, maybe not reuse the assets, but reuse a lot of the underlying code or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's basically
systems they built.
Like Microsoft own like the intellectual property of Scalebound, but all the actual like engine and all that kind of stuff, Platinum own.
Good for them.
Yeah, it seems like the rumor of why it got canceled has little to do with resources, and apparently, basically, it was something like creative differences. Like, basically, Platinum wanted to make a big open world RPG a la Nier Automata, and Microsoft was like, we just want you to make like another Bayonetta type game. And so they wanted something a little more linear, and they're like, no, we want to do something open world. We want to build this full-fledged RPG, and then that's the rumor. Whether or not it's true, well, we'll never know.
I mean, I could see that being the rumor, but that doesn't really seem like Microsoft to me. I mean, just in terms of how most studios talk about how Microsoft works with them, they normally don't normally give game direction.
Yeah, they're not very micromanaging, which is why I'm not sure.
I mean,
so Ben,
I think Microsoft would be like, hey, you got to try to work in Connect or make sure that this is back, you know, like they'll give deals for what they call it, cross-play and stuff like that. But I mean, they've released a lot of weird games on Microsoft that I don't really feel that would be something that would line up with what my guess would be what they were.
It's not so much that it was too weird.
What happened to that game? You look up fucking the Hideaki Kamiya's Twitter every year when the Microsoft press conference is on. While he was making that game, he is not kind to Microsoft.
Yeah.
He said some nasty shit, like, while they were paying his bills.
Yeah, I'm guessing, I don't think it's so much that Microsoft doesn't want weird games. It's like Microsoft wanted, a hack and slash, and that's not what they were getting.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, because, at the same time, if you're paying for a game, or exclusive rights or whatever, like if you're saying, look, this is the kind of game we're looking for in our release schedule. We don't want a huge sprawling whatever because that's just not what we want. because they try to plan out what games they have coming to a system, but
Right, they want a nice variety. Over the
yeah,
course
so
of
I
the
mean,
life
maybe that's
cycle
what
of
they
the console.
originally were looking for, and then they sometimes with games, they sprawl out of control, and all of a sudden they're adding in all this crazy shit. Maybe that's not what Microsoft wanted to pay for, was all the crazy shit. And they were like, look, we wanted a hack and slash, and now you're, having a dragon feeding pet sim or who knows what. So,
That
one
sounds
thing
like the kind of
that
shit
I
Platinum would
think-
do.
Doesn't sound like the one reason I don't believe that theory is if you look up the interviews about when they first started working together, about how they started coming together and shit. Basically, it was Phil Spencer went to whoever was the head of Platinum at the time and was basically just, we have a lot of money, we want you to make a game. What's the game you want to make?
yeah, and
just here is a blank check to make your dream game.
that's what I've been hearing about Microsoft this generation is just like, look, if you're an established studio and you want to make a game for us, we're going to make it work. So that's why maybe I don't necessarily believe it as much. But I mean, I think it's easy to cast Microsoft as the bad guy in a lot of this. Oh, this game must have been amazing. Microsoft, I don't think they would cancel a game that looked promising or was, well ahead in development or anything like that, unless they had a reason. That's kind of my opinion, because right now they are struggling for exclusives. So unless things were really dire, or unless they thought, hey, this is going to cost, millions and millions of more, and it's not going to be ready for a whole another year, and we've been pimping this thing every E3 for what, 4 years now. Maybe that's why they cut loose. I don't know. I don't know for sure.
It's really hard to tell. This seems like, I think this is the kind of cancellation we're not going to learn more about for a while.
Exactly.
It was completely out of left field. There's no signs that the project was troubled or anything like that.
Yeah, some guy will eventually come along, some intern, and be like, yeah, here's what really went down, and it's probably, people that pissed each other off would be my guess. That's probably closer to the truth than, like a company level type decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to know with these things. So we sort of know what Microsoft is up to. Nintendo, it seems like, they announced the Switch back in January.
Yeah.
And,
We're just going to see more of what we saw of the Switch preference. We're going to see more of Mario. We're going to see more of all that shit.
Yeah.
I hope we get some virtual console details, because I would love to finally get some real virtual console games on my Switch, because right now I've got 2 games on it, and that's about it. And
You have to rebuy everything, right?
I think so.
Probably. It's Nintendo, let's be
God. How many times do I need to buy Mario 3? I feel like at this point I've bankrolled the production of Mario 3.
I've been good about in the past I've never really bought into virtual console stuff, so I from my original time on if they can get some N64 games and stuff on this, I'm all aboard. I'll pay whatever.
Yeah.
It seems like that would be what the Switch is good for, playing those nostalgia games on the go.
See,
I
the
don't
thing
really
that always
know what
throws
they're
me
doing,
about
though.
that fucking buying virtual consoles is I have a Vita. It has emulators on.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, so is my.
You can homebrew that shit.
Yeah, my phone. I have an Android phone. I can play, probably everything up to and including Nintendo 64 on emulators.
Yep, it has buttons.
I just think it's hilarious. You can play friggin' Grand Theft Auto 3 or whatever on a phone now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
right?
That still doesn't seem real. I can load it up right now and do it, and it still doesn't work in my head.
Yeah, if you ask a 15-year-old me, hey, what's the future look like? And it's I don't know. I probably carry around a device that I can play, Grand Theft Auto wherever I want. And yep, that's what I've got. So, yeah.
I probably carry around a device that can play Grand Theft Auto whenever I want, and I'm still this is kind of shit. I need the new one.
This thing's slow. I want the new one.
Yeah.
Also, I'm bored and have nothing to do, so I'm just going to read Twitter all day anyway.
Oh, fuck. They got Vice City on iOS now.
No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. They've got Vice City on pretty much everything. It's been coming out for a while now. The thing to
they
watch
got
out.
San Andreas on iOS. Holy shit. Oh, wow.
There's a lot of, I don't know, probably not on the iOS store, but on the Android store, there's a lot of it's Grand Theft Stealing, Voices City or something like that. It's just
have you seen the fucking
Those fucking,
Pokemon ones?
$3 Chinese knockoffs of all this shit.
If you want to see some dodgy shit, look up, I think it's called, Monster Park. and it is like a game that you start off, and it is like Professor Oak going like, "Hey, are you a girl or a boy? Welcome to the world of Pokemon. Would you like to And it is like I get ads for it to pop up on Facebook, like saying, "Hey, play the best Pokemon game you can," and it has like the fucking like splash screen from Pokken of like the Lucario and shit, and it's like this dodgy Chinese like. How the fuck does this company not get sued out of existence?
They usually do,
it's
but
really
they
hard to
money
do
in the meantime. Yeah,
it's really hard to do international litigation too.
Yeah.
So that's probably how they get away with it for a long time.
When you asked what we would be expecting at this E3, I actually wrote down not much. I mean, that's the best way I can kind of say right now. I'm not expecting much, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be kind of one of those slow E3s. I think somebody's going to do the Fallout 4 and just be like, oh, guess what? You guys will be playing some game that everybody wants to play next week. But it seems like a lot of games have gone dark lately, and we've been getting we have all the console information we're pretty much going to get, except for the couple of things we mentioned. But I mean, there's a lot of games I feel like we get excited about every E3. Like so with Shenmue 3. Have you guys heard anything about it? I mean, or is like it's just one of those things where.
I mean, I didn't support the Kickstarter.
Oh, me either. So
for obvious reasons. But yeah, I assume it's proceeding. Like they probably don't have much to announce between, starting development in earnest and release.
I want to see what that fucking game is because the budget they've raised on Kickstarter is not the budget they can make Shenmue 3 on. Like,
well, also Sony's backing the game. I mean, they're. I don't know if they are publishing or if they're just. I think they're doing a lot.
They're bankrolling a lot of it.
Yeah,
they just managed to weasel $4 million extra from stupid fans.
That's the kicker.
Greatest pre-order scheme, basically.
Sorry if any of you actually donated to that Kickstarter.
No, I did not.
It just seemed like a pre-order scheme, right? Like it didn't.
Oh, no, it's fucking skeezy. That's what
the game's getting made. Period. I don't know what you need my money for.
Announcing a Kickstarter on an E3 stage is the shadiest fucking thing in the goddamn world.
Really weird.
It's tacky as hell.
Yeah. It's sleazy as fuck. I don't know how they get away with this shit. Yeah, I mean, Sony, they managed to get away with a lot just because they came out of the gates swinging this console generation. Like, at the start of this generation, there's no doubt about it. They were in a better position and they had the better product than the Xbox One. But like since then they've sort of been resting on their laurels and they have been attracting more exclusives, but Xbox One they've come out swinging with the better console upgrade and
even stuff like backwards compatibility
compatibility, things like cross-platform play on the PC, like which you're just not going to get.
The games you get with Xbox Gold a month versus the games you get on PlayStation. Like, because of the backwards compatibility, you get 4 games every month on your Xbox One, and because of the backwards compatibility, usually there's at least 2 like AAA Xbox 360 games. Like this month, it's fucking the second Star Wars Force Unleashed game, which I never played, so fucking sweet. Versus like, what do you get on? I don't even have PlayStation Plus anymore.
PlayStation's ones are horrible. They're always like low tier indie games or like something I don't even care about. I don't know. I've never had one that's been good.
I've heard it's a mix of good and bad. Like sometimes it'll be some indie game that you wanted to play for a while. I don't know. I don't subscribe to any of these services because I'm not really a multiplayer guy. But yeah, I've heard like Xbox honestly, is doing better these days. The problem with
the games with gold is that a month will come out and be like, I own all those games because they're all awesome.
Yeah, here's a good example. So here's games with gold right now is Walking Dead, Gianna's Sisters, Star Wars Force Unleashed 2, Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris, and Star Wars The Complete Saga. Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga. Those are like Gianna's Sisters, whatever. But Walking Dead Season 2, Star Wars Force Unleashed 2, and Lego Star Wars Complete Saga are all... That's 3 solid games right there, right?
Also, Tomb Raider Osiris is actually one of the best Tomb Raider games that's been out in a long time.
So I've heard.
Those games are fucking great.
Here's PSN, here's PlayStation Plus. You get Tales from the Borderlands. Okay, that kind of cancels out The Walking Dead. Then you get Abzu, which a lot of people like, but it's that mid-tier indie like you're talking about. Blood Knights, Port Royale 3, Laser Disco Defenders, Typewriter. I don't even know what that is. I mean, so
that's a typing game. How would you play that on a console?
I don't know. I mean, so like, but like, what somebody did is they said, okay, the average review score just this month for games with gold is 74. You know, and then the average review for PlayStation is 69, which is not a big difference, you know. But I mean, I feel like you're getting more money with games with gold. That's the one I let my PS Plus. Before I got back into Destiny, I was just like, what do I need this PS Plus for? I never get these games. So yeah, I agree with Radio Cat. The stuff you're getting from the PlayStation never feels like it's at the same level.
Yeah, I mean, in the couple months that I've had my PS4, I don't think there's a single game that they've had that I've been like, oh yeah, this is totally like I want to play through this.
I mean, I think in like the whole time I've had it, which is basically since launch, I think I got Tropico 5, and I think I got like Warriors Orochi. You know what I mean? Like one of those like
Tropico on consoles.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I'm not playing.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Typewriter, my bad, not a typing game. It's a game where the aesthetic is based off typography, which seems far more interesting.
Actually, no, I know that game. Is it called Typewriter? Because you're like a little dude that is made out of...
Rider.
Yeah, you're like a little dude that's made out of letters, and you have to like move letters around. It's like an indie puzzle platformer, kind of like fucking Limbo.
Kind of like every fucking indie puzzle platformer out there.
It's kind of cool because it like has like you move letters around to change words, and that will change what it actually is.
This
like,
is
what
kind
the
of
object is, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's gotten good reviews.
Huh,
It seems interesting.
I might go download this after.
Kind of based on this conversation, though, what do you guys? I know this is kind of like higher end than what we kind of usually talk, but indie games are kind of like, at least in my estimation, are kind of fallen a little bit from where they were like this time, even last year, right? Like I don't get as excited for an indie game as I used to. I kind of just think, well, you know, this game's going to do one thing cool, and I don't know if I don't buy as many $10 indie games as I used to. You guys kind of in the same boat or what lately?
I get that too.
I buy so many indie games. I fucking love my little shitty indie games. Like, basically,
I think the problem. Oh, go on.
No, basically, like, because I love like really hard 2D platformers, and indies keep giving me more of them, and they're amazing, and I will never stop.
So I think there's sort of a cycle with these things, right? Towards the end of a console cycle, you know, the major publishers sort of winding down, they're gearing for the next console cycle, and you start seeing the same trends repeated in the AAA games. You're less interested in what they're putting out. At the start of a console cycle, you know, publishers really haven't and developers really haven't figured out how to take advantage of the new hardware, so they're making basically what they're making on the old consoles. And it's in that sweet spot between like sort of the end of one console generation and the start of the next one where indie games really shine. And right now we're in the middle of this console generation, and it's AAA games time to shine. But as I think we move to the next console generation, 4 or 5 years down the line, we're going to start seeing this resurgence of indie games.
I mean, I think part of the problem is too. There's too many. I mean, not that there can be too many, but it's just a sea of like you have to wade through a lot of like garbage things that people are just shoveling out, as opposed to like it used to be a little bit more to get your games out there. I feel like there was a little bit more of a barrier, but that's a whole nother conversation. Like, yeah,
there are great indie games coming out now that I don't hear about until release. Like, apparently, the Sexy Brutale was not on my radar at all until like it started getting glowing reviews across the board, and now I really want to play it. But I had never heard of it until it got released.
Ditto.
Yeah, I'm not hearing about great games anymore, and it's like I didn't even realize what Remains of Edith Finch, which I'd heard, you know, way back when was coming out until it came out, and now I want to play it again. And these are games that just like I'm not hearing about these games until they're getting releast.
Right, yeah.
Which is,
well, I might be
whereas before there was like a hype cycle like, for indie games.
Minority, because like I'm the kind of person that I follow like about 50, 60 different indie developers on Twitter, and I'm like always seeing the updates for their games, and like Manifold Garden is coming out soon, which, oh my god, that game hurts my head to even look at. Like
it looks really neat, and I'm hoping it's not like Antichamber, because I didn't like Antichamber, but I'm hoping they can use that same aesthetic and same sort of vibe, but
thing.
Yeah, which is sort of the deal with Antichamber. I'm hoping they can make Antichamber, but less pretentious. But we'll see.
Was like Antichamber like plot-wise pretentious?
It's not, it doesn't really have a plot. It's like there are these, like it's sort of like an interconnected world, and when you arrive at a puzzle, sometimes you'll see a hint, a really stupid, vague hint about the puzzle. But sometimes, depending on the way you approach the puzzle, it's actually you'll see it after you solve it. So it seems like the game is mocking you for not solving the puzzle sooner. And I mean, the way that some of the puzzles are really stupid, and then eventually you end up getting a gun with magical powers like you do in every other first-person puzzler, and then the puzzles just become really rote and stupid.
Huh.
It's not a game that It's a game that got really good reviews at release, but I was one of the few people who just did not like it at all.
And the Radio Cat sits over here saying he loved it.
Oh, yeah.
We always got to have a contrarian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm moving to his neck of the woods soon, so we'll fight it out then.
Yeah, I'll fight you.
I guess, I mean, the only other thing that I'm going to take a shot in the dark here, I'm going to guess what the surprise announcement is going to be at E3. I think somebody's going to figure out a way to start a VR streaming service. Because I think VR is right on that cusp, but nobody wants to take that leap and build a $1,500 computer to really get into VR. So I don't know if it's going to be Oculus, Facebook, Microsoft, Sony, whatever. But I guess you guys remember they had that game streaming service not too long
like
ago.
Gaikai?
Yeah, that was
called.
one. There was another one. It was
Or
called like
OnLive?
Play On or something like that.
There's OnLive and there's Gaikai.
OnLive, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
those are two big
the
ones.
tech was kind of there. That was like 5-6 years ago now. I mean, I feel like now what they're probably gonna do is going to sell you basically an Android smartphone with like the Samsung Gear VR level type headset for $300, and then for $19.99 a month you can stream VR games straight to it. Using their server backbone.
The issue I see here is one with latency. You really need low latency for VR, otherwise you get motion
I mean
sick.
that would be the big thing. But I mean, Google Fiber's coming. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere and I have 300 internet. So I feel like the internet's
Okay, can I just? Yeah, no. Fucking that shit's not coming in Australia ever.
Oh yeah, you guys have weird infinite infrastructure.
Well, Canada does too.
Awful internet infrastructure, and we are never going to get we could not do streaming. I can't fucking stream Crunchyroll.
Wow.
That's not.
Did you guys have something called Anime Lab down there?
Yeah, but it's not on my Xbox One, so I've never really played with it.
Okay, sure.
But fucking yeah, I don't think streaming is a solution because it's a solution if you live in fucking America, but it's not a solution for
America doesn't even have amazing infrastructure compared to Europe.
But
Canada's is pretty bad too because
they have actually announced that is in development by the Oculus dudes. They are working on a wireless headset that has not quite the level of PC that you would have for a fucking normal Oculus thing, but kind of a halfway point between what you get on the Samsung Gear VR and an actual high level proper VR thing that's all completely wireless contained in the headset. Oculus have announced that is in development. But the thing is, I don't reckon any of that shit's going to get announced at E3 because Oculus have their own fucking yearly event thing. There is a VR event where they announce all that shit. So
yeah, I don't really follow the whole VR thing. I haven't jumped on board that train yet. I think it's a train I'd be willing to jump on maybe 6-7 years from now when the technology is more mature. But I don't essentially want to be a guinea pig.
Yeah,
I played the PSVR and it's cool, but I would never pay that much money for one. And if I can get one for $100 to hook up to my fucking Xbox Scorpio or PS5, whatever, in 2-3 years, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah.
I'm not paying $500 for that.
So I just wonder, phone processors are just going to keep getting better and better and better as far as putting the quality of the image to your face, but they're not going to be able to play VR games ever probably. So I just don't know how else they're going to get VR out to people because VR is stagnant right now. I mean, people were psyched for it for a while, but I don't know if anybody's really as excited now as people were when it kind of first got announced.
No, I mean, I know I personally was like really stoked, and I was like, oh, I'll probably like I'll think in the future I'll probably get one, but like seeing things now, I definitely have scaled back.
That's
that
something we might actually see though at E3 because like there's been basically one big AAA game on VR, and that's Resident Evil 7. I know that on the PSVR there's going to be Farpoint coming out soon. We might see Sony at their presser announce some more, AAA tier VR games that'll make the PSVR sort of more worth it.
Star Wars fly shooty thing.
There's a Star Wars VR game coming?
The X-Wing?
No, the fucking one that's like the multiplayer one that's like Battlefield. What's that called?
Battlefront.
Battlefront?
Battlefront, because the first Battlefront had a single like VR mission you could download, and it's apparently the best thing you can play on PSVR.
Yeah, a lot of people like the Batman VR one too, but that was kind of.
So, I would not be surprised since they've already developed obviously the technology to do PSVR for Battlefront. I would not be surprised if there's a lot more like space combat VR shit in Battlefront 2. Also, I reckon COD might have it, because COD did the VR mission for the super space fighty thing. So, like, there's a bunch of companies that have been developing the tech to get onto PSVR, and they, like, release demos and shit for it, so you might see what's coming with that.
Yeah, I think we'll see some VR stuff from PlayStation. They made the tech. Maybe they'll abandon it like they did the Vita.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
That shit is why I don't want to get a PSVR, because think about how many, like, peripherals and everything the fucking PlayStation have made that are nothing anymore. Like, remember the fucking PlayStation?
Do you get a lot of use out of your
gyroscopes in?
PlayStation Eye?
Yeah. How much have you used your PlayStation Move lately?
Hey, how much do you get out of that fucking PlayStation Wonder Book?
Oh god!
Oh yeah, that was a fucking thing where they read that. Was it like a Harry Potter story or some shit?
Yeah.
They read it on.
Games on it. It had Harry Potter. It had one that was like a detective story, and it had the demo disc.
Oh.
That's the entire.
That's the
fuck! It had
they made like a big deal out of it at their presser and everything. I completely forgot that the Wonder Book was a thing.
What about your fucking weird PlayStation Eye setup to read your card game? Remember that?
Yeah,
that was a thing.
Scans the QR codes instantly for you or whatever.
Like, they drop so much shit after they release it. Like,
that's what happens when you have a company essentially run by engineers, and
has there ever been like a PlayStation peripheral that has like they've pushed? Like Kinect, give that as much shit as you want. Microsoft tried to make that work.
Yeah, the developers were the ones who kind of like couldn't figure it out. I feel like I still use it to voice control my my TV and stuff.
Hate playing my PlayStation 4 because I can't talk to it.
Yeah,
it drives me insane.
It is true because like once you get used to the Kinect, it's like PlayStation. You can't record that. Never mind, you can't record.
Yeah, I can imagine it really useful. I'm just not the kind of person who likes talking to his devices.
Once you learn the code, I mean, it's gonna get more natural now that Alexa and everything. People are more used to it, but. It's so dumb. Like if you're playing a game and like you did something cool, you can just say Xbox record that, and then it puts it on the Xbox DVR, and you can share it or do it. It's just so natural. If I'm like halfway into a game and I'm like Xbox watch TV or Xbox go to Netflix, and it just does it. It gets so easy to do it.
The only problem I have with it is it doesn't understand my wife for some reason, and B it really likes going to Bing.
Yeah, to search for stuff. Yeah.
But you can't be like Xbox. Google this for me, and I'll just like
Xbox pause and Bing will come up.
I love the fact that
that guy that had his fucking username to Xbox turn off.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. Like, there's these videos of people on YouTube who troll people in multiplayer games by setting their name to Xbox turn off.
Like, fucking Xbox turn off, and then Xbox will start turning off. And like, no!
It's the dumbest trolling shit ever.
But like,
that Burger
talking to
King
my TV
commercial.
thing has gotten to the point where like, I will cook dinner, then I'll be bringing dinner upstairs, like halfway up the stairs, I'll be like, Xbox turn on. The Xbox is like all booted up and turned on and everything by the time I sit on my couch. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Same thing with Xbox turn off. Did you guys hear about that Burger King commercial? That
It talks you a Google thing that they had to take off because it was
Yeah.
fucking evil.
What?
Yeah. So there was a Burger King commercial where it said, like, Alexa.
Google, what is a Whopper?
Yeah,
Or, like,
Google what is a Whopper. Everybody, if it played near your Alexa would be like, a Whopper is, and it'll like read the Wikipedia entry of a Whopper to you.
Which they had edited to like have the like advertising description of the Whopper as the first like paragraph of text. Like a Whopper is like 2 patties on a blah, 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 on a sesame seed bun. Was like they'd edited it. That was the first paragraph of the Wikipedia article, and it's like that is some like evil shady shit.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
They had to pull it off the air.
Yeah, I can see why. So we've covered the major platform holders. What do you think about what some of the publishers might put out?
Oh,
Well,
Bayonetta
So-
3 's coming.
Pardon me, Bayonetta 3 is coming, you think,
Bayonetta
from...
3. Platinum have been putting up videos that are clips from the cutscenes of Bayonetta 1 of like a character saying a line that then repeats 3 times.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty big hint that that's going to come. That's under Sega, right?
Yeah, Sega own that.
Yeah,
So
Sega owns
I
that
reckon
IP.
it's 50-50 chance of being a Switch exclusive or on all the new consoles.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if Nintendo wants to bankroll it. Apparently, Bayonetta 2 did okay for them, from what I heard, but not great.
Except Bayonetta 1 did apparently amazing on Steam when it just got released.
yeah.
So and Sega seemed to be in their whole kind of like, we're trying to apologize for the last 10 years of being an awful shit company. So I think them doing Bayonetta
Yeah,
3
I'm waiting for that
Yeah.
Sonic apology tour.
Isn't that
Keep
what
waiting.
fucking Sonic Mania is basically?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, Sonic Mania and their new fucking Sonic Generations 2 basically seem like, we're sorry, we fucked up really bad. Please forgive us.
Like last night, I was watching some people, some comedians play Sonic Adventure 2. How did that game get released?
That
Oh,
was
How
man.
is
a
that a
good
video
one.
game?
Like, think back to that era. That was the good 3D Sonic
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
That game is so much better than Heroes or Adventure 1.
Yes.
Or like Sonic 2000, the legendary Sonic 2006. But I'm watching this game, I'm like, how is this a video game that people played and reviewed positively? Like,
Fuck,
I mean,
I have beaten that game multiple times. I loved that game.
Yeah, same. I played it way too much.
God, like even accounting for that era of gaming, it just looks so. Like, how did that make it out the door? Anyway, so we know that Sega.
Fucking coolest. That's why. I remember
Yeah,
playing a game
y'all
like,
love fucking
cool,
Shadow.
He's the coolest.
I wrote down some predictions, and you can, I don't know, let's see what you think. First one I wrote down is Skate 4. I think it's coming. I think that
Ooh.
whole, they had that tweet that they deleted, and they said, no, it's not coming. That wasn't supposed to be sent. I think that's all smokescreen. I think it's coming.
That's EA, right?
Oh, I love Skate. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
ever played it. It's a lot like Tony Hawk, but a lot more kind of like technical, I guess.
Yeah. I enjoy it.
I don't even think it's a prediction at this point. I think everybody knows that that a new Splinter Cell is coming out, and supposedly Ubisoft wants to basically do like a kind of like a Marvel Avengers thing with between the Division, Splinter
So,
Cell.
like a Tom Clancy Avengers.
Yeah, like a Tom Clancy universe kind of thing.
Like, so that's like Rainbow Six.
Tom
Division.
Clancy shared universe is not a phrase that I
Well, because they just did
thought I'd be hearing.
they did an open world Ghost Recon with Wildlands. Division is more or less an open world shooter, and then Rainbow Six Siege is kind of like, if you want to think about if you've ever played like an MMO, think about Rainbow Six Siege as like your raid or like your, you know what I mean, like your
an instance.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the rumor is that they want to basically bring everything, all the Tom Clancy properties under one house and kind of make like a open world persistent MMO. with Splinter Cell kind of being the way forward for that. I don't know.
Okay, so I have no idea whether it's like I don't follow the Tom Clancy shit at all. But isn't like the Tom Clancy shit like kind of going into like alternate, like the Division doesn't take place in the same timescape as like Rainbow Six and shit, because the Division is like post-apocalyptic.
That's why they're trying to. I think they're trying to tie it all in together. And like a couple people were like posting like these weird like speculation threads on Reddit and stuff about like
a fucking sci-fi soldier one in the Tom Clancy that was like a real-time strategy game, and
and so End
Tom
War
Clancy
was
jet game as well.
End War was their first attempt to kind of do this, because like you have the Hawks, the jet game. The Hawks would come in and they would like swoop in on the missions, and there was like super units that were basically like your Ghost Recon soldiers and stuff like that. So they've been talking about doing this for a long time, but it would basically be like an MMO shooter, where like you operate alongside Sam Fisher, or you go out on a mission with the Rainbow Six guys, or the Ghost Recon guys take you to some weird country and you do a strike there or a mission there. So the rumor's been that that's what Ubisoft has been like kind of leading to forever in their Tom Clancy universe. End War was kind of their first attempt at it. It was not at all successful, but I think some of that was the tech wasn't there. So a lot of people are guessing that.
Always with this shit, I wonder how Tom Clancy feels about this.
He's dead.
He's dead. So
Is he?
Yeah.
So
he died back in 2013.
Oh shit! Okay,
So-
never mind. He doesn't give a shit.
I mean, he founded Red Storm, so apparently he wanted video games based on his properties.
He was a big gamer, and Red Storm has kind of carried the Tom Clancy torch in a lot of ways. Ghost Recon's not, the new Wildlands is not really super tactical, but at times Siege is. Siege feels very cool. I don't know if you guys have played it. It's a really unique style of game, but if you don't have 3 friends, don't even fucking buy it. So that's my advice. But yeah, I mean, so I think that it can get there, and I think the easiest way to do it is a new Splinter Cell game that basically, Sam Fisher games have always been like these crazy conspiratorial, sneak your way through type games. So I think that would be kind of the
one that was 24.
Oh yeah, yeah, I forgot about that one. So that's those are my 2 predictions. I'm guessing we're going to see something about a new Elder Scrolls, right? I mean,
Yeah.
fucking
Speaking of Bethesda, I think what we're definitely going to see this year is a new Wolfenstein, because they've been teasing that for a while.
Yeah.
I really doubt a new Elder Scrolls, because they've literally just finished Fallout 4, and those games take a while.
Yeah.
But remember what they did with Fallout 4, where they had a studio, half their studio working on it in secret, and they were like, hey, guess what? Fallout 4 comes out next month. Do you know what I mean? They might not do that again, but they might say,
but because how long between Skyrim and Fallout 4, though, was it? It was like 3-4 years.
Yeah. Fallout
And
4
how
was
many
2.5.
How many times are they gonna re-release Skyrim too? Like I feel like we're not gonna see a new Elder Scrolls from
probably
Hey, it's coming to the Switch.
You're the guy who bought
Remember
the
that.
fucking Switch, buddy.
True.
Okay, so new prediction. I reckon we're going to see Skyrim, like a new HD version of Skyrim.
Yeah.
I reckon fucking Assassin's Creed Empire has to be there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a new Ass Creed from Ubisoft.
We had a year with Assassin's Creed, and that's left me with withdrawals. So, like, I need the new Assassin's Creed.
You need
I'm
the
glad
Ass
they
Creed.
took a year off, though. One, it gave me a chance to catch up because I was falling way fucking behind. I still have to finish Syndicate, which I actually really enjoy. But
It's
man,
so good, isn't it? Like, it's weird that game's good.
Yeah.
Because Ass Creed has never been good.
I know.
Oh.
I love Assassin's Creed, and I
Yeah.
will agree with you because like 90% of the games in that series are shit. But Syndicate's really good. It's like
I should just skip ahead to Syndicate, because
No.
I'm in the middle of Brotherhood
you're
right
gonna-
now, and I fucking hate that game.
If you're gonna skip ahead to either Rogue or Black Flag.
Black Flag's
I would
great.
do Rogue
Yeah.
over Black Flag. Actually, I reckon it's a better game.
I think so.
It's also in Canada, so yay.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to play Assassin's Creed, play Assassin's Creed 1 to see how shit they were at the beginning. Play like maybe Assassin's Creed 2 to see like where it went. Then Assassin's Creed Liberation, maybe if you want a good story. Then Rogue, then Syndicate, and you're done.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, fucking Like, the Ezio trilogy is massively overrated. I don't fucking want to...
Either you like the character or you don't. I think that's the thing.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's overrated, but
I fucking hate Ezio.
Well, then yeah.
He's a
then you hate
smug, smarmy douchebag.
He changes a
And
lot by the end,
Revelations
though.
is a
That-
really bad game. Like,
that-
Revelations is...
Does it have, like, a friggin' RTS section or whatever?
Oh, I love that section. I'm not gonna lie. That's one of my favorite little mini games.
Like
in
the
the game.
tower defense
I
or
love
whatever?
it. Oh, it's so dumb, but it's so
Yeah.
fun.
What I want to see out of fucking Assassin's Creed Empire, though, I want...
So that's the, like,
Combat
the
system.
Egyptian one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ancient Egypt, but I want them to steal the Ferrari combat system. If they put that into Assassin's Creed, I will be so happy forever.
That sounds dope. I didn't know that it was going to be Egypt.
Yeah, they leaked
Yeah,
a
I've
test screen
I've
of it
been
a
saying
long
there's,
time
like,
ago.
There's no action games set in ancient Egypt. It's all like there's like the Pharaoh series, but that's a simulation game.
Yeah.
Well,
Right, but that's-
name a action game that is set in the same time period as any of the fucking Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah,
Like,
it's-
I
maybe
mean, like
Pirates of the
Syndicate, there's
Caribbean
like
or-
there's like Victorian England sort of style games. Like there's still that aesthetic, but there's not so there's no like colonial America games, sure, for Assassin's Creed 3, and there are very few. I mean, there are pirate games in the Caribbean, but they're like Risen, and that's a shitty series. So yeah,
fucking
I mean,
the French Revolution. Name another game set there. Fucking the Renaissance, the 100-Year War. They're always set in places that no one has ever done before, which is why I don't want a fucking feudal Japan one. Sorry.
But
Yeah,
how do they fit in their whole Templar assassin thing in ancient Egypt? Isn't that
like doesn't ancient Egypt predate it?
yeah? That seems like they're
Not
jumping
really.
around there.
Because the whole point of this one is supposed to be it's as far back as they've ever gone, which I think means they want to tie it more into the precursors than
Yeah.
the fucking Templar assassin
Ooh.
stuff.
I'm into that.
yeah, because the precursor stuff
right?
kind of died out, and I agree. I think they want to get the precursor
Oh,
stuff back on the main
shit.
story.
Speaking of that, though, what I reckon
The
we're gonna
precursors
fucking...
like aliens or something? I don't
They
fucking know how the
are-
series works.
No, they are people that lived before. Basically, humanity is a descendant of a slave race of this giant super race that lived before, recorded history.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed games get weird.
The
But,
same,
okay.
the same precursors from Halo, pretty much the same.
Yeah, pretty
Same
much.
idea.
Oh, they're like the
There's no fucking-
Protheans.
Tedious fucking
That's great.
3-novel series about the Assassin's Creed ones, because if there was, I would have read that shit. But,
The comics aren't bad if you want to read the comics.
I can show you my fucking
This is
Assassin's
like some
Creed,
next level nerdery.
wall, of every single piece of Assassin's Creed media that exists that I own, including the fucking DS games, and trust me, I'm way in there. I'm not going.
I don't have a ton, but I have said on this very same podcast before how good the side scrollers are. I've stood up for those side scrollers, so I really think if you're looking for kind of like a Mark of the Shadow type side scroller, the Assassin's Creed ones are really good.
I literally have the Vita case sitting right
Mark of the
beside
Ninja,
me.
you mean? Yeah, okay.
But kind of on the Assassin's Creed train, I reckon we're going to see fucking gameplay of Ancestors by Patrice Désilets, the guy that made Assassin's Creed 1,
Yeah.
2, and
Yeah.
because he showed off a tiny clip of it before at some Gamescom thing, but I reckon we're finally going to get to see what that game is. It's no longer an episodic game anymore. It's like a full release now. And
So is that like an open world action game, or what exactly is it?
okay, basically the concept is you are going to go through history, because Patrice Désilets fucking loves that shit apparently, and play through each of the major points of development of the human race. So all they've shown so far at the moment is you are going to play as the first monkey that stood on its hind legs and climbed, the very first one to ever do that, and you were going
So
to
you're
play...
gonna be like, what's it called? Australopithecus afarensis,
Yes,
or whatever it's called.
basically. And they showed
Yeah.
a tiny little bit of gameplay of you playing as this monkey swinging through the trees and everything. And yeah, apparently it's going to keep jumping through to all the major points of human evolution and development.
That sounds
and everything.
awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds
I
like
know,
a really
right?
neat idea that is either gonna make a really neat video game or a complete disaster. I don't think there's
Yeah.
any in between with this
There's
game.
no in
The
between.
thing that makes me think it's going to be good is it's Patrice Désilets. He made Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, which is amazing.
Ooh.
he made Assassin's Creed 1, which is not that great, but he also made Assassin's Creed 2, which is fucking amazing. Like, the guy makes good games.
He's got good ideas for sure. So I mean, I'll definitely give it.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought Sands of Time was Jordan Mechner, but he was the designer, like the level designer, and Daisy Lai was the director.
Jordan Mechner is the guy that created the original Prince of Persia, and he was like a producer and shit on it because he still owns the rights to Prince of Persia, so his name is on every fucking Prince of Persia game.
But like apparently he was like one of the level designers, and he was the writer for Sands of Time.
Yeah, but like
the direction, like the director, game director was Patrice Désilets, right?
Who I am kind of secretly in love with. But yeah, I reckon we've got to see more of that game, and I'm really excited to see it.
Oh, some Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu.
What?
I don't know.
Who would have thought? He's from some small Quebec town that I've heard of because, it's a Canada thing. Anyway, so the other thing I think we're going to see from Ubisoft is maybe they're going to announce something related to Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Oh, don't get my hopes up.
I'm not even hoping anymore.
I've given up hope.
Yeah, I'd say something Far Cry before that. But I think they're going to keep doing Far Cry in these kind of little bite-sized adventures, like Primal, and like Blood Dragon and stuff like that. I don't think they want to do a whole nother fully realized Far Cry, but
honestly, I prefer that at this point.
Me too.
They're fun and they're different.
I want more Blood Dragon and less whatever the fuck the other Far Cry games are.
Primal wasn't bad either, but I just kind of feel like they're going to keep going with that because they kind of. Nobody really likes where that series has been going, I think, for some reason. So there's a lot of, I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff about it.
People don't like the writing in those games for whatever reason. I wouldn't know. I've never...
it's adequate.
The way that you can beat Far Cry 4 by just sitting down and waiting for him is probably my favorite.
That was genius. I loved that.
Yeah, I love them just, like, fucking trolling them now.
Yeah.
Fucking trolling the player base. They definitely should. The other game I want to mention... Sorry, go ahead.
While it's still on Ubisoft, I reckon they're going to announce a bunch more For Honor stuff there, like new characters or like Season 3, something like that, DLC shit.
There's been a leak, and the guy who leaked it was right about this season being called Shadow and Honor. So the rest are... I don't know if you want me to spoil it for you, but there's going to be a Highlander...
Oh, God, please.
Like a Highlander Celt for the Vikings. That is kind of like midway between Berserker and Raider. There's going to be a Huntress, I think, for the Vikings that is kind of like more based around ranged abilities. Nobody's really figured out how that one's going to work. But yeah, if you go on the subreddit, they kind of know what all of them are already, and they're all really cool. And they were right about the Centurion, so I think that's going to be pretty cool.
I'm waiting for guest characters in that game.
Yeah, and I feel like that they're going to just keep expanding the number of players that you can play, or the types of players you can play as, and get a little bit away from Knights versus Samurai versus Vikings.
Well, Centurion's already getting away from there.
But the meta game, the overworld game, I think was kind of a flop. I don't think people are liking it as much. Like declaring for a faction, it just all seems kind of convoluted. Like nobody can really figure out why the Vikings won this season or whatever. So, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. In any case, there's one more game, one more thing I wanted to mention. EA wise, I think BioWare is actually going to unveil their new IP at E3 because they've been teasing it for a while, and rumor has it that it's kind of like a Destiny-ish kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm intrigued to see what it is. No, they have not.
It's like a modern-day fantasy thing, kind of like that MMO.
Oh, we're talking about Shadow Realms? That got canceled. That got canceled a long time ago. I think we've had this exact same conversation on this podcast. Yeah, Shadow Realms was a thing for a while, and apparently it was really shitty, and it got canceled. So that's how these things seem to go, unfortunately.
Well,
yeah.
Real quick, like something that I think that we haven't talked about, but do you think, because this is the first year that E3 is going to be open to the public to buy tickets just do you think that's going to affect the way that people will present or anything? Because I think it's a big change in the way that the show is run. So I wonder if the show will reflect that.
I reckon if it will reflect it, it will be like next year or the year after. I don't think the companies are going to be ready to change on the very first year that happens. Like, they would like present as they normally do this year, then see how that goes and change to kind of like better reflect that as the years progress.
We've got to remember it's still very much a trade show.
Yeah.
It's not just like we see a lot of stuff that happens, like there's press going there and they report from the show floor, and that's for the fans. But there's a lot of business deals that I don't know if they necessarily get inked at E3, but there are vendors walking around for, you know, various hardware peripherals that we don't hear about because most of us aren't, you know, like racing junkies or fight stick junkies or what have you. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens at E3 that we're just not privy to. And that's still all going to happen.
Fucking scale-bound gameplay demo that we still haven't got to see with the dragon combos that I'm still salty about. they should E3, like this thing where you can like swap between controlling like the not Dante kid and the dragon and do like dragon launches and aerial combos and shit, and we've never got to see that gameplay.
Yeah, like a lot of stuff just stays under wraps, unfortunately, at E3.
I'll tell you, I mean, because I've had some experience. I've never been to an E3, but I've been to a lot of PAXs, and I went to a BlizzCon, and you know, there are shows for the fans out there where you could like, and PAX is probably the best example of one, but I think I kind of like that idea that, you know, E3 is more of a business thing, and then if you're just a fan of a series, announce it at your day or at something like a PAX or something, but nobody's going to do that because, you know, Microsoft, Sony, and all them, if they're announcing something new, they want the games to go along with it. So that's where I think the business end of it comes, and kind of why I get less excited about E3 more and more every year. Because a lot of times with E3, you're delivering kind of like a promise more than you are like an actual game or series or anything else. But how many of those promises never actually make it to prime time? How many games have we seen at E3 that just kind of we never hear about again or whatever? So I get pumped about, you know, some of the stuff they announced, but I'm more used to getting disappointed by E3 than anything at this point.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the business stuff is going to start moving over to like GDC.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is ever going to stop being a developer-focused thing, because like that's the whole fucking point of it is like developers doing long-winded speeches about fucking rendering techniques that no one gives a shit about.
Yeah, I think we'll see sort of like the more like the gaming business side will go GDC, and the hardware business side will go CES.
And then Nintendo and Sony will always be big at Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah.
Right. So like E3 is sort of
it's like caught in the middle. Like is the best.
Yeah, it doesn't have. It's a jack of all trades, master of none.
It's not super like one console or anything focused, but you do announce a lot at it, so you got to have stuff ready to go. But it's not really for the fans, even though now they let the fans go. I mean, like if you can't ever go to a PAX, they're all over the place. Now I really recommend it because I mean everybody does something different. Like I went to a couple panels and shit, but really what I would like is the show floor where you can literally just sit down there, you know, with the devs and just sit down there and be like, okay, you know, tell me about what this game's deal is, or where do you see this game going and stuff like that. And you can ask them all kinds of questions, and they're really cool about it. So,
yeah,
I reckon if anything's gonna like kind of take E3's thunder, it's PlayStation already have the PlayStation event every year in fucking November. Nintendo have their big Nintendo Directs that aren't usually at E3, like they had their Switch one. I reckon it's only a matter of time until Microsoft start doing their own things, and then what the fuck is going to be the point of E3?
Yeah, and I think E3 is the one that's like the show that's probably in the most danger of becoming irrelevant, honestly. I mean, all the other ones seem to have like a role or a purpose, but E3 is always kind of like in that middle ground. And it seems weird because I know they want it in June to announce stuff, but a lot of times, even now, if you announce something in June, it's not going to be ready for the holidays. So you're announcing stuff that's not ready for 2 or 3 years, and so like you're not even really building hype at this point. Like,
yeah,
I mean, are you guys hyped
that's
for
kind of the
Shenmue?
point, though. You're showing to investors that you've got stuff in the pipeline, so
but I'm sure the investors
don't
are like,
sell your shares.
But then Scalebound never comes out. But then Crackdown 3 is still, who knows what. So yeah, I don't even know if the investors are as, captivated
I think if
by
there's
it.
anything we've learned about investors in the video game industry, it's that they're fucking idiots. Like, they want like Nintendo to put everything on mobile. They want, they're asking why can't you make 30 fucking open world games that everybody else is making to all their, not just to Nintendo, to like all.
Can
all
you
the
stick
major platform holders.
microtransactions in this, because that's what everybody seems to really love is microtransactions. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean that's what I guess where I get my kind of like earlier when you said what do you expect at E3, and I kind of like not much. I mean that's kind of what I feel like. I feel like E3 is kind of like that show that of course I'm going to watch and I'm interested in it, but I never get as much stuff from E3 as I always feel like I should for like the level of hype that I get for E3 versus what I actually find out or hear about at E3 then versus what actually comes out or is released. There's like a huge gap,
It's almost like my interest in E3 is purely academic.
Yeah.
Like I'm interested in how they present what they have rather than what actually comes out of it. And I think that's what's interesting to discuss about E3, the business aspect of it, rather than the actual games, because we're going to hear that news at some PAX or some other conference or through some direct video. The trailer's going to drop. We get that news some other way.
Especially now that you got so many like super publishers like Acti Blizz and EA and Ubi, like those guys can do whatever the hell they want. I mean when you're 75% of the AAA market between those three or four, I mean they can put out whatever the hell they want whenever they want.
They can do whatever.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so that's what we think we're looking forward to from E3. Let's move on to the second topic we're going to discuss today, which is video game violence. Video game violence is a big topic in the world of gaming, and it's often a controversial topic. But this is something that's sort of been discussed ad nauseum, and we're kind of coming to the topic late because society more or less seems to have settled on kind of grudgingly just accepting video game violence, like it's here to stay. It was subject to a Supreme Court decision a few years ago in the United States, and it basically stated, well, yeah, government can't censor games. So it's, in a way, it's sort of nice, though, because we can separate that from the urgent politics of it. Like, we're not going to be defending people's right to make violent video games today. We can talk about, how violence is treated in games and how we feel about it and whether we think it's used effectively. I mean, that all applies for North America, Canada, the United States. Ben, I don't know exactly what the situation is in Australia. I know sometimes games are denied rating for ultraviolence.
Not really. Basically,
it's more like sex stuff.
We had a big thing where our rating is our highest rating, which is the equivalent of your NC-17, which didn't apply to games. Games could only go up to an MA15 plus rating, which I think is the equivalent of your R, confusingly. And that was a big thing. So any game that would be rated over 15 plus got banned. So we didn't get Mortal Kombat. We didn't get, I think, Left 4 Dead 4. We didn't get. Oh, we fucking pirated them. One thing you learn in Australia is how to steal shit. But
Country's based on it.
We have a fucking government website that tells you how to set up a VPN. So
that's amazing.
Because it was this is how you set up a VPN to get Netflix, because Netflix won't sell in Australia, and fuck them, geolocking's bullshit. So here's how to set up a VPN and steal Netflix. But that all went away. We have R18 games now. Basically, the only thing that'll get a game banned is realistic drug usage and sexual violence. So
okay, so stuff like Hotline Miami 2 wouldn't.
Yeah, Hotline Miami 2 got
to
banned for the rape scene at the beginning.
Because it feels like I hear more about games getting banned in Australia than a lot of other places. I mean, China games get they rework games in China, but Australia seems to ban a lot of games. And in Germany, of course, they do that if you have anything related to Nazis.
They had the robot shit, robot fucking Carmageddon.
Yeah.
But
anything related to Nazi imagery, yeah.
Oh, and violence. They're really bad on violence. They changed all the pedestrians in Carmageddon 2 to robots because even the censored version where there were aliens and zombies was too violent for Germany. So, like, yeah, they are weird. But yeah, we have some weird fucking draconian censorship laws, but it doesn't really mean much at the end of the day because we just import shit and pirate it. Everyone's used to doing that here, so fuck it.
So when you say realistic drug usage, it probably doesn't cover stuff like Jet from Fallout 2.
What actually happened with that was I think Fallout 3 originally did get banned because they had morphine in it or something, and then it got people actually complained like, "What the fuck? Why do you have morphine in Fallout? It's called Jet." And they went back and changed. Like they edited it to be Jet, and then Australia's like, "Yeah, fuck, that's a made up drug. Let's go."
I love how arbitrary this is.
Games that got banned for drug use is I think it was Blitz or something, the football game where you could give your characters drugs to make them better.
Yeah, it's like steroids or something. Yeah.
Basically, it needs to be real drugs that are used that give you a positive impact in the game, and that gets banned.
Huh. Because if you ever want to look up, speaking of arbitrary, if you ever want to look up arbitrary, look at some of the changes that Dota had to make because of China, or like any Blizzard game. Like there's a hero called Skeleton King, and they had to change him to Wraith King because for some reason skeletons in China are considered very like I don't know, like sacred or something. So they had to make changes to that. And
there's a law against stories that involve time travel in China.
Yeah, because like it's you mess with the ancestors or something.
I looked it up when you mentioned this, and basically nobody actually knows why the whole skeleton thing got changed, because it isn't really like there's a ban on depictions of skeletons, but there's some I don't know, there's some superstition or something. I looked it up. It's in a previous link dump, and I'll link it again here. But it's complicated, and nobody actually knows why.
Yeah. I remember when Blizzard was going to include the Pandarans in WoW. There was this weird row between them and China because apparently depictions of violence against pandas. So because you could do PvP, so you were PvPing against the panda, you're hitting over the head with a stick or stabbing it or whatever. Nobody really knew what China was going to do in terms of is this depicting violence against pandas? So they had to change the Pandarans X amount to make it clear that they're not really pandas or something like that.
They're humanoid panda monsters.
Yeah, and it was weird. It was giving them fingers. It was the weirdest stuff that you never would have thought of, but they had to make all these changes supposedly. I don't know how much of that is true and how much is.
I wonder if Kung Fu Panda had to go through any of that shit because it was a joint Chinese-American development.
Probably not. Once China is going to make money off it, they don't really give a shit. That's what I've tended to notice, and their weird, licensing laws or whatever. But no, I mean, back to violence. I mean, I do kind of feel weird when I play games where the main thing about the game is violence for violence sake. Now, I really like Sniper Elite. I'm not gonna lie. Have you guys ever played Sniper Elite?
No.
Yeah, I'm not very good at it, and I died really quickly, and I'm I hate this game. It's trash.
So here's what it does. It's when you shoot somebody, it does an X-ray of them. So you see the bullet go through their fucking teeth and then exit out.
This is the game where you can shoot somebody's testicles and watch them explode.
You can turn it off, but it is kind of weird. But in some ways, it's almost so over the top. It's goofy, It's oh, look at that! I shot that guy in the eyeball from across the map. It's just kind of it's almost like a reward for a good shot as you get to see this super gross. Blood splattered type kill cam.
It's the Mortal Kombat thing,
Yeah, it's exactly X-ray mode.
But and fucking, well, not even the X-rays, but the fatalities in the new Mortal Kombat they're fucking rough, man.
Yeah, they're brutal.
But that's I guess that's what I'm saying. When games designed to be violent like that, it almost comes off if you watch. Say a Sam Raimi Evil Dead type movie or show. You know what I mean? It's oh my god, there's gallons and gallons and gallons of blood, but it's done in a way where you're okay, it's so over the top, it's kind of goofy at this point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not done real. There's there's the fucking dude rips off a guy's head and then stabs an Oscar into the stump.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Oscar
Johnny
Award
Cage.
movie.
Yeah.
There's like he does like the ripping through their chest and sticking his head out like the bit from The Shining and go, "Here's Johnny," and like
It looks so fake that at that point I just don't care.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess what I don't feel comfortable with, and what I don't want to see come back are games like Night Trap or stuff like that, where it's like it's depicting.
Well, no one wants FMV games to come back.
Well, Night Trap's getting a release, isn't it? Wasn't that in the news?
Yeah, it's getting a re-release.
But I don't
Yeah.
think anyone actually wants an FMV
No, I
game.
don't think anybody does either. But I mean, like that's when I get kind of like I couldn't finish Manhunt as an example. Like it's too like it's depicting the type of violence that feels real and is designed to feel real against real people.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain. It's like one of those I know it when I see it type things. But I could barely finish Manhunt.
Yeah, I think when you need that sort of level of you need that level of abstraction. I could say words. You need that level of abstraction because otherwise, when it feels really visceral, then it's very uncomfortable. And I think in general, we seem to be more okay with cartoonish violence, but when it becomes really realistic, when you're up close and you see it starts to feel a little bit gross, almost.
Like, I have to say,
Yeah.
one of the only times I've seen, like, the violence in a game that actually, like, physically unsettled me, like, was, the first-person mode in Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, when you hold up the fucking stores and shit.
Yeah,
That stuff
yeah.
was, like, that's not fun to watch.
And like they
Like that-
animated the faces so like the people look like legitimately terrified that you're like holding a gun to their face and
Oh, I
Yeah,
never
that-
played the first person mode, so that's interesting.
It's terrifying. Like,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is like a scene from fucking Romper Stomper or American History X or some shit. Like,
I think I had a similar experience with the All Points Bulletin. Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody's familiar with that one.
Oh yeah,
It-
I've heard that game.
It's not graphic violence, but I think it's a little bit like Grand Theft Auto in that you can mug people on the streets when you're playing a criminal, and it's pretty. It's not very violent. You're not killing them or anything, but it's like you're beating them up a bit, and it's.
Yeah,
I think the difference is like what you're saying, and I think what we're kind of saying too is like the violence against the average schlub in a video game feels weird. It's different to rip Kano's head off and shit down his neck and eat his spine or whatever. But like if it's just like some shopkeeper, like
yeah, like you feel bad for them because like you can be like, that's happened. Like
yeah.
that has probably happened down the road from me some time ago. Like that, like it's something you can more easily relate to.
Yeah.
My kid's been into just like watching me play games and play games. So this comes up a lot. Like, is this game okay for him to play? Like, I have to tell my wife why I think it's okay for him to play Destiny but not Ghost Recon. Do you know what I mean? Like, or like there's like that weird like thing, But like he was playing Ghost Recon or watched me play or whatever, and he accidentally shot a civilian, And like he felt bad about it. Like, he's like, "Oh, that was just like a guy like, carrying a jug of water to his family." He's like, "Oh, I didn't mean to kill him." He's like, "Do I have to quit or like do I die?" I'm like, "Nah, like the game does like the 3 strike you're out civilian thing, But to him that was weird. He's like, "But I killed the guy, like I need to start." over." And I was like,
That's so cute.
well,
"Yeah." So I was like,
good sign. Good
okay.
sign for your son's moral compass.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, yeah, start over. You're right. And then he's like, well, it's like I didn't kill him now because I started over. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You didn't kill him. So, but yeah, I mean, it comes up a lot with kids, obviously, about is this too violent? Is this not violent enough? But
Now I feel bad about the first time I got Grand Theft Auto 1, like the top-down one. I was like, I can just run over everyone on the street. Yeah.
oh yeah, Grand Theft Auto is definitely like that weird, like, yeah, it feels bad when you do certain things in Grand Theft Auto. It doesn't feel good, and the game doesn't punish you enough sometimes when you like, you mow through 10 people sitting on the side of the road or whatever. And and that's one of the reasons I'm not ready to let my kid play that. But
Well, did you ever play the first top-down ones?
yeah,
And it had the line of Harry Krishnas, and you get bonus points if you
yeah,
run
and
over
you
them
make
all.
a blood streak that you keep driving down the street. Yeah, but when I was thinking about violence, I think my main thing is just it has to feel like you're doing something to somebody because of something. Like that random aspect of it, I just think is kind of, I don't know. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I could see that. For me, I'm more okay with it, I think, because it feels so unrealistic to me that it doesn't even register as violence to me. I'm the kind of person who wouldn't even throw a punch at somebody I was really angry at in real life. But in a video game, it's just it's so far removed from reality for me that it doesn't register as something uncomfortable. Unless, you see them squirm or whatever. I don't think I'd be cool with hatred.
Yeah.
But in Grand Theft
yeah.
Auto, it's so cartoonish that it just doesn't register really for me.
Except I feel like the Grand Theft Auto torture scene, infamous scene, that was
Yeah.
pretty brutal.
Oh, GTA 5?
Yeah. That was not
It didn't
fun.
fit the game. It didn't feel anything. It just felt like they did it to kind of, I don't know. I hated that scene, honestly.
Yeah, it felt like shock value almost.
Exactly.
Can you believe you're doing this?
Isn't that just all Grand Theft Auto though? I've gotten so.
It was taken to the next level though.
Yeah, it was
with the
very-
intensity.
So I mean, because some of the stuff I think a lot of modern military shooters I'm not comfortable with. I mean, I was in the Army and everything, but not that I experienced any of the shit in real life or whatever. But a lot of the stuff that they do it makes me feel like, oh, we're just driving to this area and just shoot everybody that moves. I never really liked that, and that's why I think a game like Spec Ops kind of deals with that. But I don't like just even in modern military shooters, I don't like just driving into an area and just opening fire on people just because they're but most games I think they do the whole thing where here's your mini map. If this guy's red, he's a bad guy. So that's kind of how they get around it.
Yeah, there's this line from when I played the Medal of Honor reboot that stuck with me, where one of the characters says, "Okay, what are we gonna do now?" And the other one says, "We're gonna kill our way up this mountain until there's nothing left to kill."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my god!
It's stuff like that, in Call of Duty, where it's everybody that we see just open fire as soon as you see him, or it never really deals with, well, what the fuck am I
that's
even
not how the
shooting?
military
Yeah,
works.
exactly. If something moves, shoot it. It doesn't really work, and that's how you play those shooting games. So everybody in this area is a bad guy, and that's why Spec Ops worked so good, because for years you've just been shooting these people. So yeah, but I don't know. I feel like that's always been kind of disingenuous when you just walk into an area and just start opening fire on shit just because it's moving. It just feels weird to me.
Unless they're robots.
Yeah, robots are safe. You can shoot all the robots you want.
The Samurai Jack dodge.
Yeah, pretty much. The Samurai Jack reason. If there's robots, you can do whatever the fuck you want to them. What was that? Was it Sega or something? Had that one where you could dismember the robots and they'd crawl after you and shit.
Yeah, and then
This is really funny because they really just did a podcast on Nier Automata. We're yeah, we can do whatever the fuck we want to robots now. But yeah, it seems like when the thing you're fighting doesn't seem like it has a consciousness, or when you're fighting aliens, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah,
when you're fighting
yeah.
humans,
Actually, I have to say, for things that don't have a consciousness, I feel worse when it's an animal.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
okay, yeah, I can see that.
In you mentioned Neo Automata, the fucking mooses, and I got a mission where I had to get 7 moose skins. I felt awful. That destroyed me, and because the mooses don't even fight back, they run away and scream, and you're just no, I'm sorry, I need your meat, and I feel I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I should clarify that the moose, there's an item you get that make the moose docile. Until you get that item, the moose can be aggressive as hell, and they'll just run into you and ram you, near the start of the game. So that happened to me near the start of the game. A moose took half my health, and I almost died. And so I was I was taking revenge on moose for the rest of the game.
Literally,
But that's 'cause I'm an asshole.
An item that is be friends with a moose. I'm fuck yes.
There's an item that makes a moose come up and lick you. Like,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like it just changes your relationship to animals completely.
Also, then you can ride the mooses because they're your friends.
Yeah,
Did you guys-
it's really fun.
any of you guys play what was that game that just came out? Shit, everybody, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Love
Radio Cat played it.
Yeah, so like they do kind of make those machine animals feel a little realistic. And there was a part like kind of towards the end, I was like, I felt bad killing those stupid raptor guys because they were so easy, to kill. And I would just like walk up and like just shove my spear like all the way up its ass and just like rip it. I was like, that thing wasn't doing anything. You were just doing what he was programmed to do, walk around in circles,
And then they kind of like squeal when they're like dying. Like, oh, I'm sorry, but I gotta
like,
do.
slowly see its light in its eye flicker out.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like the more adorable they make something, the less you want to kill it.
But yeah,
Like that.
I don't know. I don't. I'm trying to think like. I think what a lot of games do to kind of make up for that, like the graphics of killing it, how graphic you can kill animals. I think they either go one or two ways with it. They either make animals complete assholes, like in Far Cry. Like think about all those like eagles and badgers. Like I got to the point I hated those
The
eagles.
fucking cougars in Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, exactly. Like you hear, like I'm gonna murder this. I'm gonna go out of my way to kill this thing because I hate them so much. Or like they did in Assassin's Creed, they have you say a little prayer, like, "Oh, this poor animal," like, "You didn't deserve this, you beautiful animal," or whatever that prayer.
Wow, you haven't played the Assassin's Creed hunting stuff in a while, have you? You don't say a prayer, you skin them. And you are left with a skinless animal corpse.
No, I guess I haven't.
See, that's just meat at that point.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like in some games you can contrast, say, like hunting games, like Big Cabela's or whatever it's called, Cabela's Big Game Hunter, where games that have like this sort of hunting mechanic, and it seems like it's almost as if it's even more visceral in some of these unrealistic games.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think realism is a big part of it. I wonder, like, if VR takes off the way it will, if shooters are still going to kind of be that dominant genre, because I don't know if people are going to enjoy. Do you know what I mean? Like feeling like you're actually there.
I've heard people saying that, like, you play a shooter and it's uncomfortable. It's not enjoyable, like seeing someone die in front of you. That's not a fun thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really good book that I read a long time ago. It's called On Killing, and if you ever want to read a weird book about the military or whatever, it's basically like there was a study, like even in like World War II in Vietnam, like after big firefight engagements, they would talk to guys and they were like, I never even fired a shot. Like you're getting shot at for hours and hours. You never, and like it takes a lot to like get somebody to like physically shoot at another person. And so like that's one of the things. Like I think the more realistic it gets, the less and less people are going to like doing that kind of mechanical action. Of,
But like, it's kind of like that thing, like with firing squads, they'd only load like 2 of the guns out of 7.
Yeah.
So
you have
everyone
like
had
plausible
deniability.
deniability.
That, the other ones were loaded with blanks, so everyone like shot and it looked the same, but no one knew who actually killed them. And I think they did the same with when they dropped the nukes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They had like dummy planes dropping bombs as well, and they didn't tell anyone who had the real one. So like no one had to have the mental like scarring of I killed however many million people.
Yeah, I mean it's so yeah. That is one thing I.
We know which one dropped, or at least one of them. Right?
Yeah, Enola Gay.
Enola Gay was on
Gay,
Hiroshima. Yeah.
They probably figured out a couple seconds
Later.
Yeah.
Maybe we should change things up for Nagasaki. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think that would be interesting because right now, I mean, FPSs are where it's at, but I think the more realistic you make it and you toss that VR layer onto it, I can't imagine a lot of people being like as gung ho about all of it as they are now in some ways. If you make it super realistic, but yeah, like you mentioned it earlier, that hatred game or those types of games, those are really repulsive. I just don't know what the point of them are other than to piss people off, but.
That was
That's
literally
the
the
main
point
reason.
of hatred.
Yeah.
Like, they wanted to cause controversy, so people bought the game based on the controversy. That's the entire point.
And the sad part is
And
it
it worked.
worked.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was
Have
such
you
an
seen the
obvious.
end of that game? He nukes the world. It's dumbest shit in the world.
Wow. But anybody who's
God.
ever like even at all familiar with video games knew that that was nothing but a troll attempt. It's like the TV equivalent of like, "Hail, honey, I'm home." You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're just trying to be an asshole now. But yeah, it was a horrible game, and I just don't know, like who that market's for. When we're talking, game violence, I just hate that there's all these examples where I'm like, yeah, that shit probably shouldn't exist. I think Manhunt walks, I've kind of ragged on it a little bit, but I think Manhunt kind of walks that fine line too, of whether or not you're just playing that to be an asshole, or that story in that game is pretty damn flimsy for all the actual shit you end up doing.
I've heard people speak positively of it, but I've never played it, so I can't judge for myself.
That shit is brutal.
It is.
Like,
It's
that fucking the plastic bag execution. That's one of the roughest things I've seen in a game.
Yeah, and
You suffocate somebody to death with a
Yeah.
plastic
you just
bag.
like hold a plastic bag over their head and they like squirm and try and get it off and suffocate and die. And it's horrific.
the
Like, even
story
on
behind it is
PS2
really
graphics
flimsy.
is just-
Yeah, so there's not the motive like there is in lots of other games, like to kind of keep you going, playing it. But yeah, it's kind of a weird one. I didn't enjoy it at all.
Well, that sounds almost like it runs counter to the reason most violence is in games. Like violence in games, like your character is doing some formidable feats and stuff, and the plastic bag stuff seems like it's really contrived to like.
Yeah, it's like
to have
something a
strong-
villain would do, right? Like it's not a heroic act, It's
It's also mundane, right? It's not like you're using some crazy weapon to
Yeah,
defeat
that's
some
what kind of
crazy
makes
enemy.
it like kind of awful. Like you get a cerebral bore in Turok, and it like sucks out someone's brain, and they like that's hilarious. That's amazing. But,
Yeah, I mean, there's like
it's with this plastic bag. It's just.
Oh yeah, and there's like stabbing people with like a broken piece of glass. I mean, it's like very it's very like when you guys were kids. You remember like the Faces of Death type shit. You know what I mean? Or like those kind of.
Yeah, just shock value.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it feels like. It's like, oh, what's the craziest thing we can do?
From the game.
Yeah, but yeah, that's where Jack Thompson and all those other people came from, was this game. And I mean, it's hard because like I don't think the game justifies itself. Like I think it's easy to say like, okay, well, there's lots of other stuff in Doom that makes it a fun game to play, but Manhunt is literally just about violent, weird executions to people who are arguably good or bad. I mean, you really don't. There's no story behind it. It's just you kind of walk up behind someone and kill them, and
that. Okay, it's been a while since I played Manhunt, but isn't it like a fucking Running Man situation? Like you're a prisoner putting up against
there's
who's trying to kill you.
So I'm not 100% on this, you're a convicted felon or something like that, and you're getting ready to get killed. However, you wake up and someone's like, as long as you listen to me, I'll make sure you don't die and you'll be freed or something like that. And then so like it's just this voice that you kind of hear, and then he wants you to go around and you're killing supposedly gang members, I think. But I mean, like 9 times out of 10, they're just sitting there, and you just kind of sneak behind them and stab them in the neck, and like the game has different levels of executions too, I think. So there's like the silent execution, which is like the plastic bag where the guy like struggles for air as you're choking him, or there's like the bloody one where you rip out his throat. I mean, it's just so like, and the plot never really. I don't know. Like they try to like, oh well, this is a gang of pedophiles. Like that's fucking dumb. You know what I mean? Like it's just very like they try to excuse a lot of the violence by making the gang members even worse, but then it just makes it all seem shitty because it's like, so wait, there's a gang of pedophiles and I have to go around and stab them in the throat. Like none of it makes sense at this point. So yeah, it's a shitty game, I think, and it's a Rockstar game. I'm pretty sure, right? Was it? It's Take-Two or Rockstar? Yeah.
Was.
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Take-Two basically owns Rockstar.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I would
It
steer
was
clear of it.
Rockstar when Rockstar actually made games that weren't Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, wait, isn't there's this rumor that Rockstar is actually working on Bully 2 right now. I don't know how true that is. We'll see. At
I
E3.
don't believe that
Yeah.
for a second.
Yeah, that's
I
the
think we'll
weird
see
thing
Bully
about
2 after the Agent comes out.
I feel.
Oh, Agent. I think Agent wasn't Agent canceled.
Oh man, no, it has me.
I should look
I
this
stopped
up.
following that 10 years ago.
I thought it got re-upped like the trademark and shit last year, didn't it?
Oh, it's still TBA.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I'll be waiting with bated breath. But yeah, I kind of feel like there's companies that kind of get ruined by their own success, and I sort of think it's like Rockstar's on the verge of that, like Valve was. I feel like they've figured out they can.
Oh, like Valve totally is right now.
Well, I feel like Rockstar's figured out they can print money with this GTI line shit, where they're selling like the real money for in-game currency, and the people who are obsessed with Grand Theft Auto are still playing GTA Online, and they're probably raking in thousands and thousands of dollars for a game they don't have to put any more work into, besides releasing weird little texture packs or whatever that people will still
Micro
buy.
Machines racing now.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, they might not make new games for a long time. Look what happened with Valve, where they figured out, well, we can make fucking hats and clothes for League of Legends, or not League of Legends, but Dota, and make millions of dollars.
I reckon fucking Blizzard is basically there. I don't think we're going to see a new, like, they have League of Legends ripoff, they have WoW, they have Overwatch, and they have Diablo 3. Those are all forever games.
Yeah, Overwatch especially, man. Like, Overwatch can be a game I can see, like never getting a sequel, just always getting, like, an update. Do you know what I mean? Just...
Yeah.
It's
Well,
the new Team Fortress 2, basically.
That's a whole nother topic. That's games as a service as opposed to games as a product.
Right. And Overwatch is... I don't know if you guys saw this, but they had to announce the percentage rates for drops. China said, look, you can't just sell these loot crates and not tell people what chance they're going to have at getting the kind of loot that they want. So they had to announce the percentage chances of some of these loot crates. And actually, I didn't think they were as bad as I thought they were going to be. I think it's an epic item, which is what you want in Overwatch, every 11 crates, which to me isn't insane.
Yeah. Because that's the first paywall for it. You get an extra bonus crate for the $10.
Yeah. So for $10, you're getting an epic skin, which I think most people would crazily be okay with.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad as I thought. I thought it was gonna be like one like every 50 or something, but no.
Yeah. So to bring it back to video game violence, Rockstar, they've made their GTA. They've also did Max Payne 3, which seems like it's one of the games that actually seems to examine what it means to be violent and the results that come from it. This is a game where somebody thinks he has. I mean, I'm going to spoil the story a little bit here. Where somebody thinks he has to be violent to achieve his ends, and he discovered that he's just been used for most of the game, and that really all he's done is unnecessary. And it seems like there's a lot more games like this come out recently. We discussed Spec Ops: The Line earlier. The Drakengard Nier series, also, there are games where you go through the game being violent, and they show you what that violence actually meant later on.
Wow, Drakengard 1 is just... That is one of the best examples I've seen of that, where it actually makes the violence not fun intentionally.
Yeah, and then, like, Nier does a similar thing. Nier Automata does a similar thing where it shows where you use violence to achieve your ends, and it shows you here are the beings you've actually been harming. Sorry?
It shows you that was a dick move. Don't do that.
Well, even Dishonored kind of does. Yeah. Dishonored 1 does that, where you get the bad ending if you're violent versus if you kind of sneak through, which I don't agree with. I mean, because if you're sneaking through missions and ruining everybody's life, what's the difference than just killing them? But Dishonored, you get the bad ending if you don't. If you're whatever it is, high chaos.
My thing with Dishonored is that its morality system is almost orthogonal to its themes.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like this morality system related to violence. Like, Dishonored is not a game about violence. It's a game about power, control, and subterfuge. Right? And it seems like tying the morality system not to power, control, and subterfuge, but to whether or not you've killed people.
Yeah.
it seems like it doesn't actually have anything to say about the violence. Whereas games without morality systems, like Spec Ops, Max Payne 3, have done a better job examining, what it means to be violent, whether violence is a good way of achieving one's goals, whether it's even effective. And that's not something Dishonored really delves into, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily better to leave someone alive but have them branded a heretic and, be tortured every day for the rest of their lives. I don't think that's necessarily much more merciful, than...
I mean, there's Dishonored's an old game, we can spoil it now. One of the executions in the first Dishonored, or one of the ways you can eliminate a target, I should say, is you can either kill her, or you can ship her off to essentially become somebody's
sex slave.
Slave?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah. It's really weird. I mean,
and that's the low chaos solution. Yeah. That is the
good solution.
What is the game considers more ethical.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Arcane received a lot of flack for that, understandably.
Even they spend that whole, even the first mission, they spend the whole mission telling you, this is what happens in the society if you're excommunicated, more or less, right? It's the worst life you can imagine. And then
you become a pariah, you become homeless, basically.
Yeah, and then so your guy's like, well, I'm going to do that to this guy then. It's like, well, why don't you just kill him, Yeah, it's really
weird.
weird.
That game had a lot of narrative flaws. Like, the whole thing with, God, I forget everyone's name in that game, but the little girl you saved, that's the princess.
Emily Caldwin?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole relationship she builds up with Corvo, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Corvo.
And
Corvo Atano.
All the whole father figure and everything through that, and you go visit her and everything. He doesn't say a fucking word.
Yeah.
Becomes really attached to this mute killer.
Yeah.
All he does is kill. That is, he sneaks and kills and feeds people to rats. And this little girl's like, I love him. He's my dad. No,
he played hide and seek with me once. I love him forever.
It's the same problem I have with Half-Life 2. Everyone develops these big emotional connections with Gordon Freeman, who is a mute weapon that they're we need people to die here. Let's send Gordon over there.
Yeah, at least
why is Alex Vance hugging me? I haven't said a damn word to her.
Yeah, at least Halo, everybody's interaction with you in Halo is God, you're a fucking badass. Nobody cares about your dreams, your aspirations. They're man, you kill aliens real good.
And Master Chief actually is voiced.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk very much.
He doesn't need to.
His
He's
personality.
just a fucking ass. Yeah.
Yeah, but he says things.
Yeah. But yeah,
you don't hire John St. John for nothing.
I really do think that.
Is he John St. John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he's the voice of Master Chief.
Pretty
Fuck
sure.
off!
It might not be. It might be. I know he's a DJ. Let's see. I'll look it up.
I'm sorry. I've played every Halo game, and I had no idea.
He's a disc jockey. Yeah. I've actually. You know what's weird is I've actually heard him on the radio.
And he doesn't sound like Yooka-Man. It weirds me out.
No. Yeah. But
wait, no, I don't think it was him. Never mind.
Yes, Steve Downs is his name, and he's a.
Oh, okay, my bad. I was confusing him with Duke Nukem.
Yeah, so I mean, I if I don't get attached to a character, I mean that's some of it's on me, some of it's on the character itself, right? But most of the time, the characters I tend to get attached to are voiced. It's weird to me that so many people love Gordon Freeman, for example. I mean, I think the story in Half-Life is cool, but I mean, the storytelling's in stuff like We Don't Go to Ravenholm anymore, or, missions like that. It's not so much what Gordon Freeman does. Shit just kind of happens to him, in my opinion.
It's...
The non-voice characters weird me out. There's something that I find creepy about them, because I know it's the whole thing where you're supposed to be, putting yourself in their shoes, but it always ends up, I'm picturing what that person is like for the other people to interact with, and it's terrifying.
Well, yeah, and Corvo has this whole, by the time you're introduced to him, he's got a story. I mean, he's this master spy, and he's coming back from this mission, and, there's this weird plague, and everybody's relying on him. It's different to me when you jump into a brand new character that doesn't have this really established history, and they're not voiced. Because then, I can put myself into their shoes, but I couldn't this guy's already got a story, Doesn't matter what I
Y'all
think.
aren't gonna like the new Prey game
Oh, yeah?
because that's a silent pro tag.
Ugh.
She don't talk.
2017, man, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It feels like maybe in a way to bring this back to violence. Do you think the violence feels worse when you're a silent protagonist or when you're somebody else with a character, like with an actual voiced character?
I think if it's silent, I feel like it's more of a like avatar, so it's more of you doing it as opposed to if it's a character, it's like, oh, that character is doing that, and I have a little layer of removal of performing the action.
Yeah, it's like it's that asshole's
Yeah,
fault,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
I think
I'm
the
not
silent
go ahead.
characters don't. It's not so much that like I associate myself with them. It's that because they're a silent character, they have no personality, and when they're killing things, they're just a weapon. They're not a thing. They're not a person. That was my thing with like Gordon Freeman. Gordon Freeman is basically like, if you look at it from anyone else's point of view, he's like this mute guy who like this resistance people pick up and just like completely exploiting. Just like, we need everything in this area dead. We have this dude who doesn't argue or do anything. We'll just shove him to that area, and then all our problems will be solved. Like, that's what those characters become, and it's fucking creepy.
Well, one example for me is I know I'm not as high on The Witcher as a lot of other people, right? Just as a series and everything else. But it's because I can never connect with Geralt. I just can't. And like, I wouldn't make the decisions he makes. So I've always been kind of disconnected from that whole series because I'm like, okay, well, this is what Geralt is going to do in this situation. It's not what I would do, right? So whenever something happens in that game, I never really feel as tied to it as like, even though he's a fully voiced protagonist and everything, but he is, by the time you meet him, he's already had these, 100 years of adventures or whatever. And I'm just the guy, who's like, yeah, like I'm like watching episode 45 of a 500 episode series, So that's kind of like where I go. Like, silent protagonist to me can be really well done, but if you're trying to inhabit that person, then yeah, the violence to me can feel a lot worse than even if it's a voice, but the character's just doing shitty things that maybe you wouldn't do under normal circumstances.
I also feel like a character that's voiced you have more opportunities to have what they're doing addressed. Like, so say we saw Spec Ops: The Line. If he was a mute protagonist, that game would not work.
Yeah.
He couldn't have. Or like Wolfenstein, BJ. Like, he has a voice. He's a person. He deals with the issues of what he did, and he like deals with the ramifications of what he's becoming because he's a person. He's reacting to it. Whereas like versus Gordon Freeman, who never has any introspection about what he does because he's a mute.
Yeah.
So like,
it's interesting you bring up the New Order because I mean, at the end of the game, okay, let's not spoil the end of the game, but it's interesting you bring up Wolfenstein and BJ Blazkowicz because that is a lot of what the New Order was about. It was about BJ accepting that he's becoming a killing machine. That you need this machine, this guy who can't hold on to human connections,
right?
In order to defeat this unstoppable evil.
One of the games.
It's yeah.
Sorry, you go.
I was gonna say it's in that sense it's almost like a tragedy that somebody's essentially becoming inhuman
totally
to fight the
tragedy.
Inhumans.
It's just a tragedy where you get a jetpack and shoot lasers on the moon because that game's fucking amazing.
Yeah, and depending on how much of the Halo story you do or don't follow, I mean, Master Chief has a lot of that going on there too. He was basically a child soldier.
Goddamn tragic.
Yeah. He's like
I reckon Master Chief is one of the best examples of like developing. Because Master Chief is, you play the games and he's just this unkillable super ubersmech and everything. But then you read the books and shit and it is like what it takes to make a person that and what they lose to become that. And it's fucked up and Dr. Halsey is an evil psychopath.
Yeah, and like when you see her in the game, you're like, oh, okay, she's the lady who made me. Cool, she made my power armor. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, she kidnapped me as a child and fucking like put implants in me that are basically gonna cripple and kill me, slowly over time.
Did you read the Kilo 7 trilogy?
Yeah.
Where like the fucking you find the parents of the kids that have been kidnapped have like been starting rebellions because my fucking kid got kidnapped and replaced with a clone that was doomed to die because it had no organs.
And the crazy thing
I'm
about
being
too is
sent to kill my dad now because he's a insurgent because I got kidnapped.
And people think that the Spartan program wasn't started to kill the aliens in Halo. It was started to kill other, like it was started like as a result of a civil war. Yeah, to go out and kill people who were.
And then they only got revealed to the public after the aliens came. Like, hey, we actually have something that works against this.
Yeah.
Another game I reckon does weirdly in one specific case, a good example of dealing with violence and the ramifications of violence is Street Fighter, which seems weird, but bear with me.
Okay, we're bearing with you.
Anyone know the story of Cody?
No.
Okay, Cody is the main protagonist of Final Fight, the side-scrolling beat-em-up that was originally going to be Street Fighter 2, and then it's a long story, but it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and you play as Cody, and you, like, fight Mad Gear, and it's a gang, they kidnap the mayor's daughter, and you have to go beat him up and all this. It's very difficult beat-em-up shit, right? But then Cody never showed up in Final Fight 2 or 3, he was just gone, and they never really mentioned it. Then he shows up in Street Fighter, and he's got a completely new design, where he is wearing, like, prison stripy pajama things and handcuffs, because his story is basically, after he beat up an entire city in Final Fight, he got really into just enjoying violence and kept fighting and just started random fights and beating the shit out of people and went to jail because that's what happens when you do that.
Oh, wow, I had no idea there was that much backstory behind the prisoner uniform.
Yeah, I didn't know that Street Fighter even like had a story.
I could talk to you all day about the fucking Street Fighter story. But yeah, and so his character he is a dude in handcuffs in a prison jumpsuit that is broken out of jail, and like because he really wants to fight. Like it's just broken him inside.
And he likes to
Also,
throw rocks.
every match that you play with Cody, there is a knife on the ground that he can pick up and shank you.
Dear Lord. Okay, so we've covered a lot of games where you're controlling a character directly, but that's not the only kind of violent video game out there. Like a lot of strategy games and simulation games have a lot of violence in them, but we don't tend to hear about them in the violent video game debate. And I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts on why that is.
I think it's that macro versus micro level, thing. Like, it feels okay in a RTS to, even play as the Germans and wipe out an American army because it's, maybe you see like an animated guy dying, but you never really make that connection like we're talking about with that army or that person or anything like that. I think that's what kind of sanitizes it.
There's
like,
that thing where your brain can only make an emotional connection with a maximum of 200 people or something, and like in a game where you have like 400 dudes fighting another 400 dudes, there's no possible way you can care about what happens to everyone.
I think because they're very good storytellers, Blizzard has done that a couple times. Did you guys ever play the Warcraft 2 campaign?
Yes, I love that game.
There's what is it, Strombrad? More or less, the evil undead forces deliver this tainted grain to this city, and then great. King Arthas, not yet, the bad guy, says, "Look, these people are going to turn into zombies. We've got to basically go through this city and murder all the villagers, right?" And they are animated in the game as like NPC villagers, and you run around as Arthas and just smash them. Like it's weird. But yeah,
I think that was Warcraft 3, not 2.
Was it 3? Oh yeah, that's right. It's 3, but pre-Frozen Throne. So I mean that was always kind of weird to me, like that they actually did something like that. Was have you go wipe out a whole village as what was then the hero of the game, and then later on,
Arthas, his whole story in Warcraft 3 is what fucking Anakin should have been in the prequel. Basically.
Yeah. But that act of basically destroying that village leads him to become what ultimately is like the greatest villain of Warcraft that you then kind of just randomly kill in WoW because they run out of good villains for that game. But yeah, so I mean that was like one of the times.
The fact that you play through, because if you haven't played Warcraft 3, how that game works is you don't get to choose which campaign you play through in order. There's the campaign for the orcs, campaigns for the humans, campaign for the undead, campaign for the night elves, but there's like the story order that they happen in, so you have to play like one by the other, by the other, by the other kind of thing. And so you play as the human one first, and Arthas is the main character of the human one, and then you play as the undead one, and Arthas is still the main character because now he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, his story. I mean, they tell it quick, but it's in a really cool way, and it's one of the few times where like you actually see. I mean, like the violent act just kind of he gets kind of Melville Moby Dick with it, where he just becomes so we've got to stop this by any means necessary.
Cutscene.
Yeah,
with his dad, like holy shit, that is
slowly
great.
Walks up to the throne, and it says, "What is that?
Right.
You've been succeeded," or something like that.
Father.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this seems like a case where they make the violence feel more personal by like overlaying this like a story on top of it through cutscenes
Right.
and stuff.
So,
but like the actual gameplay is still very much removed from the actual act of killing.
In that, when you're killing those NPCs, they're not footmen. They're not. I mean, they are literally like the boring villager, the little white shirt guy, that walks around. He's not even a peasant. He's an NPC villager.
Like waving their hands like, help.
Yeah.
And you're like,
They just
sorry,
run from you, and they just run screaming. They're like, "Don't do this." And you're like, so bad. You're gonna turn into a zombie. I gotta kill you. But yeah, that was probably the few examples I can think.
And then the first level you play as the undead is you being Arthas with an undead army sacking a village that has no soldiers defending it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you just fuck it. We need more undead. Let's kill all these motherfuckers.
Yeah, and then
It's
you
horrifying.
you bring Sylvanas back to
it's
life.
It's a very different approach from like the typical RTS where it's usually two evenly matched armies going at it.
Right.
This seems like just by flipping the mechanics a little bit, by having you go after people who aren't really fighting back or aren't competent enough to fight back, seems like it changes. Like it's a nice way to tell the story through gameplay in an RTS, where we usually kind of relegate that to cutscenes.
Yeah, like legit. If you haven't played Warcraft 3, that game's amazing, and you should play it. Like, there's a reason people were excited for World of Warcraft, because Warcraft 3 was so fucking good.
I think
Now, sorry, go ahead.
no, I think in strategy games, the thing that made me feel the reality of the violence the most is when you have when it affects your ability to play, like in Crusader Kings or Romance of the Three Kingdoms or games like that. When the more you send people to their death, the less you have to send to their death. Like when you're depleting your people, and basically it affects your ability to win the game when too many people die. And
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like the more you screw up and those people die,
Well,
the harder and harder the game gets.
Like XCOM, which is basically like a kind of like a more macro version of the strategy game, but like those are your people, and you send them off, and you die, and they're dead, and you're fucked. Which is also like Fire Emblem does that, where it's like, oh god, he died. I was like halfway through romancing him with that person. They get a baby. I'm restarting. Like,
Yeah, permadeath. I think. Sorry, permadeath is a good way to make the consequences of your actions really hold in RTS or strategy games, especially when you're holding these characters sort of over time, forming relationships with them.
one game that I reckon did the really good, making you feel like a dick for being violent through gameplay. It wasn't an RTS, but Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's probably like the first game I ever played that like makes you feel bad for killing things.
Even though they're giant things that are cool to kill. Yeah,
But, like,
Yeah, because it's like they're these majestic special creatures, and you're killing the only example of them in the world.
I got to get more powerful, dude. Too bad for them.
Yeah. So, are there any other thoughts before we close out on video game violence or examples of games that have handled the violence in an interesting way?
I'll just say that I am kind of glad we've gotten past like the pearl clutching part of our culture. When it comes to game violence, like, think about the kids and stuff, because it really just means to me in a lot of ways that we're past looking at games as just being things that kids do. I feel like this generation gets it, but it was like a weird thing to tell people 10, 15 years ago, you played video games. It was like, what do you mean? Like, you don't watch movies. Like, it's the same damn thing, dude. One of us, it's just no.
One is just holding a controller while doing it.
Exactly.
But
yeah,
playing Metal Gear Solid, it is a movie.
played for 10 minutes, watched for 20. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of a good news story, is that people aren't so weird about games being just for kids anymore. I feel like comics are kind of in that same parallel universe in a little way. That the comics aren't just looked at as things for kids anymore, so it's okay for them to tell more adult stories.
Well, as long as it
There's a
doesn't become,
whole...
Sorry, Demi, go
I
ahead.
mean, as long as it doesn't become games or comics are just for teens, so let's have a lot of blood and
Yeah, that's
heads
Yeah,
flying.
you don't want to go the other way. I think what's happened is, we now the next generation of parents are the people who grew up on video games. And so they understand video game violence in a way that their parents didn't. And they're raising their children to, like, they understand the context of violence, and they can, play games alongside their kids and talk about video game violence and media violence with their children. Which, I didn't have that luxury with my parents, who didn't really grow up with video games. But, in the future, I think it's going to be a more normal part of people's childhood and raising children.
That's definitely what it feels like with my kid. I mean,
well,
when I sit down and I talk him through, what we're doing in a game, he wants to know why we're doing it a lot of times, and it's hard. I think, maybe 20 years ago, it was probably hard to explain. Well, 30 years, 50, I don't even know. It's probably hard to explain why is Mario going through stomping on these heads. You know what I mean? But I think as game writing kind of gets a little more sophisticated, it gets easier to explain, well, this character is doing this because, they kidnapped my wife, or, you know what I mean? There's always some reason, but it gets a little bit easier to explain. And then I can kind of direct, well, that's why you've got to go through and jump on their heads or do whatever. It's a little bit easier to kind of explain that, other than just, 20 years ago when games didn't really have a story. It was like, yeah, of course you're going to go through and final fight and punch people in the face, because that's what this kind of game is.
Because they're to my right, and I have to go right. So
Yeah, I'm a bad dude, and they kidnapped the president's daughter.
One thing, I'm going to take a weird stance and go to bat for the people that were pearl clutching against violence. I think, obviously that was a dumb thing to do, but I think the end result of it is, I think we have gotten better games because of it. I don't think we would have gotten games that, were as introspective and looking at what games were doing with violence without that kind of reaction. And I also don't think we would have, kind of the indie game thing of how you can get games that don't have violence in now. That was not something that existed when I grew up. Every game when I grew up was either a LucasArts point-and-click adventure game or you killed shit.
It really felt for a while I don't know, mid-90s, everything was going to be a shooter for a while, didn't it? I mean, it just was man, can we make anything that's not a shooter, anymore? Or is it just, this is what we're all games from now on are shooters from here on out? It's kind of what it felt like. But yeah, I mean, luckily a couple of different companies came along and cut that shit out.
We even have fucking major companies making games that are Ubisoft. All their big AAA games are violent. I was talking about, you get the fucking executions and shit in Piranha, and they're awesome. But they also put out Valiant Hearts and
I can't believe Merve isn't screaming "Grow Home" right now.
I was about to say Grow Home. But
Merve is...
when Ubisoft,
oh yeah, I that's the game I played.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that. So I zoned out there.
Putting out these kind of fun, happy, completely violent-free or examining the consequences of violence games, and even major developers are doing that shit. I think that's only good for everyone. That those are options.
Well, in a way, I think a lot of that's going on in gaming, and there's a lot of parallels. I think, kind of the push for, hey, let's, whatever you want to call it, the push for equal, better treatment for women in games, as characters. I think that's going to have, really, really positive benefits in the long run. But there was so much resistance up front with it that people were just no, we're not going to make these games about girls. And that's not really what it's about. It's making a game about a good character first, And I think that people are starting to see that now. You get the Tomb Raider reboot is the best Tomb Raider there's ever been. So I think that as developers kind of do the same thing with violence, like, look, this is how we're going to apply violence, and there's going to be some thought behind it, and it's not just going to be
like, just the fact that developers are like, violence is an option that we can put in the game, and if we're putting it in the game, we're putting it in the game because we're choosing to put violence in the game rather than, like, I think like early 2000s was, I'm making a game, it's going to be about killing things, how are we going to kill things in this game?
Yeah.
I mean, killing is just like sort of a natural like thing to do in a game, which sounds weird, but if you're moving about in space, and video games are about moving around obstacles in space, you can either make some sort of platformer type game, or you can make a game where you remove the obstacles, and the easiest way to remove an obstacle is to shoot at it until it goes away.
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up with all these violent games. But now there are more verbs in our arsenal as game development has matured, not just shoot, punch, kill, kick, what have you. And there are more interesting ways in which we can remove these obstacles. It's not just
I mean, think about in the latest Deus Ex, how people were mad. Well, 2 ones ago, not the latest. People were mad that you couldn't talk your way through fights and not, not fight people. Like, they were like, "What do you mean I can't just talk my way through this fight? I don't want to fight anybody." So I mean, I think that's a good example. Where people are slowly getting away from, okay, everything's got to be solved, by shooting something. You know what? No, maybe there can be some games where, we fight our way, we talk our way through battles or things like that.
Yeah,
oh shit!
Definitely.
Bringing this back to E3 and games we expect to see. Maybe we're going to see what the fuck Kojima was talking about when he said Death Stranding is going to be about strings holding things together instead of sticks pushing things away.
You guys have way more faith in Kojima than I do. I'll tell you that.
I have no idea what the shit that game is going to be.
I'm with you, Kappa.
I don't have faith in Kojima. I just want to see what fucking delirious madness he is making.
I have a feeling that
I'm just
everyone's going
curious.
to be very disappointed with that game when it finally hits the streets. I think people are expecting it to be one thing, and I have a feeling that him, without the filter, without the the editorial people above him, man, I'm telling you, I'm not optimistic.
This Lord had editorial people?
Yeah, exactly.
Had like 3-hour.
Give editorial let friggin' quiet through. Come on. Nobody's been peering over this guy's shoulder for years.
Well, I mean, he's such a genius and all this other stuff, but man, I'm telling you, when he gets his free reign, this game is going to be weird. And I think half the internet's going to be like, this is going to be good weird or bad weird. And I think if you're not on the good weird team, you better be ready to be told you're an idiot for not getting it, because that's exactly what the defense. You're just too stupid. You just don't understand the Norman Reedus black ooze baby.
You don't understand naked Norman Reedus with a baby
You feel
holding a fetus?
it's too advanced for you Philistines. You don't understand his vision.
Oh yeah, I don't expect it to be
well-
good, but I just want to see what the fuck it is, eh?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Well, on that note, I think this has been a very interesting and informative podcast for our listeners. If you'd like to keep up to date with the podcast, you can follow us on our website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com, where we post each episode along with a link dump that fact checks everything we say, because we say a lot of things that aren't true, unfortunately.
Everything
Not
I did is
intentionally.
true.
We're not. Yeah, we're not liars. Well,
I am.
yeah, Radio Cat's a liar. It's scary how good he is at it. Anyway, you can also subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play Music. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. We're easy to find. Anything else you guys want to tell us before we wrap this up?
Oh, I think that covers it for me.
I'm
Waka.
confident that there was no Templars in ancient Egypt. So that was actually correct. I'm sure.
You looked it up. All right. On that note, thank you all for being on the podcast, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.